This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon, a very warm welcome to the schools joining us this afternoon on Safari Live. My name is Steve Falconbridge, joined on camera by Fergus. We are out in Djuma in the Sabi Sands, and the weather is quite mild and quite cool, very overcast. We had some scattered showers earlier, and we were out looking for cats, lions in particular. We thought we might have a quick little look. But please, your questions with your teacher. Let us know what you'd like to talk about, what you'd like to see. We're going to focus on some animals and some science facts this afternoon. And I hope you are going to be sending your questions and comments soon, because we are very excited to have you on the show. So there's not too much going on at the water, but the water is very, very important. It is known as the currency of life. And without water, no animals out here will survive. So we're going to check all the water points, because there's a good chance we could find something hairy and dangerous nearby. So let's carry on. And while we move out of this area and continue on in our quest, let's go over to another friend of mine, Taylor McCurdy. He would like to say hello.
Hello everybody, and welcome of course on this live safari. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is Senzo, and we're hoping to find all sorts of wonderful animals. And I've already seen one of the prettiest birds that we have out here on safari, which is just up in that dead marula tree, just sitting on the edge of the branches there. Look at that. Now it doesn't look like much from here. Oh, there it goes, but as it flies away you can see all the beautiful blues on it. And if we're lucky enough to see it turn towards us, oh no, it's just being too cheeky today. We might even be able to see it's got a beautiful purple breast, and that's called a lilac-breasted roller. Isn't that cool? But it's sitting very, very far away now, and they are specialists at catching insects. It's really quite cool to see them, how they dive down to the ground. Sometimes they're even able to catch a couple of things in the air, which is amazing. Really, really nice. But we're coming down to a big dam called Chitwa Dam, where I think we're going to see lots of hippos, maybe a crocodile, but it's a bit on the cold side today. You can see it's a little bit miserable out here, hey? It actually feels like it's just starting to rain a little bit, but there's just lots and lots of these big clouds that are passing over. I'm hoping it's not going to get too bad. At the moment we're just sitting under a nasty cloud, because I can still see patches of blue sky. Look at that. Well, there's a patch of blue sky. The weather is really not on our side today. That's not very nice. Hey, oh well, we'll try and deal with it. What I have actually seen is another hornbill that's basically in the fork of the tree in the branches closest to us, Senzo. Oh, there we go. There's another one that's landed. Another really cool bird to see out on safari is a red-billed hornbill. But I think we're going to be seeing lots of them. Okie dokie, off you go to Tristan, who's the last person you'll be meeting today, and he's out on a bushwalk. Oh, sorry, Bex. I know you guys are still with us, but as we're sitting here, all of a sudden the rain has just got so hard. So I'm very quickly going to pass this to Senzo. He's just trying to cover his camera. Like I said, it's just a small cloud that we're sitting under at the moment. But I just want to cover all the very expensive equipment. So you see we've got these really cool canvas covers. Pretty amazing, hey? I don't think we're going to have to go back for a roof. Like I said, I think if I drive down a little bit further, we'll actually be okay and avoid the rain completely. So we're just getting it organized here. I'm going to stand up. I'm just going to help Senzo very quickly, because you want to make sure, like I said, that we keep this equipment nice and dry. Are you ready? We're going to put the camera's pajamas on now. There it goes. And we're back. There we go. So we'll just quickly do that. All the radios and things need to stay nice and dry. And it's so strange to be having rain now. We should have not had any more rain. It should have been finished. But nobody says no to rain, because it is so precious, and we're coming into dry season now, so I'm almost certain that all the animals will be very, very, very happy with the fact that they're going to have extra water in the dams, the grass is going to stay greener for longer. We're all good, Sens? Yeah. And look, now it stopped. Now the rain has stopped completely. I think that's what we're going to be in for this afternoon. Just little showers every now and then. Now, Mark, that hornbill that we were looking at doesn't eat mosquitoes. I think that would be a little bit too small for that bird. They like to eat big beetles. Can you believe they eat scorpions and centipedes, all those weird, creepy crawlies? Things that I'm not too fond of. They love to eat. But there is lots of dragonflies down at the dam. Maybe because it's a cooler day, we'll see some resting up on trees or down on the ground. And dragonflies love to eat mosquitoes. It's one of their favorite things. And dragonflies are fast enough to be able to chase after them. Also the bats. The bats that come out at night, they love to eat mosquitoes too. And they can eat a thousand in one evening. Imagine just eating mosquitoes. Don't think that would be too tasty. Now, we'll see if we can find some more birds. I'm looking for some that are going to be sitting down. And we'll see them in a little bit. I reckon if you give me 2 seconds, I'll be able to find one for you. I can see lots of them flying around. We just need to wait for one to sit down. So Senzo's also looking left. He's looking right. He's looking right. He's looking left. All these different directions. But we'll see some nice dead trees up here, which will make for a perfect perch for some birds. So, Erin, it's quite easy for the birds to catch. I can hear one. Who's talking to me? Sounded like a telephone ringing. Hey, Senzo? Sounded like maybe a Birchall starling. We've just got to find them. They could be in the grass. So, sorry, Erin. What I was going to say is that it's quite easy for the birds to catch. You know, Senzo, there's some warthogs down there. We'll get to the birds. They can catch those bugs so easily. They're really good at flying. Some of them will catch the insects in the sky as they're flying around. They're able to catch them. Others will actually catch insects on the floor. And those are warthogs. So when we find some more birds, we'll talk about how they catch their food. Those warthogs don't have to worry about chasing after anything. They eat grass. And at the moment, they're very happy that we've had extra rain because all the grasses are starting to flower and those seeds are delicious. It's their favorite thing to eat at the moment. Normally we see warthogs going down on their knees and crawling around using their nose to try and uproot all the grass. But that's not the case today. Like I said, they're feeding a little bit further up on the grass stems and getting all the seeds. Anyway, something that would like to eat a warthog is a lion, and Steve has got a carpet of them.
Yes, we have, boys and girls. Look at what we have found. We have found a pride of lions called the Nkuhuma Pride. It's a pride of 11 lions, 5 adults and 6 youngsters, and only one of them is a boy. Poor boy, don't you think? So what do you think, boys and girls from Shelton Park, Longdale and White Oak Elementaries? What are your thoughts about seeing your first lion? Or have you seen a lion before, I wonder? And if you have, let us know. Tell us what you think. Send us some questions. These are the largest carnivores on the African continent. And they are very, very lazy at the moment. And as we guessed it, there's a little puddle of water very close by. There's a little puddle of water just here about 30-40 meters away, so it's a good chance that they moved here to drink, because we did spend some time with them last night where they hunted and killed a very beautiful antelope called a kudu, which I'll try to find a picture for you if you've never seen one before. And Taylor's correct in saying they will eat a warthog, but a warthog will not go very far in this big pride. 11 animals, they can feed on a lot of meat in one go, and so the warthog would just cause them to fight more than they would actually eat. So I know up in the Maasai Mara we've spent some time. There's a pride up there that spends a lot of time with warthog, and they eat them quite savagely. So here I can show a little picture in the front here. Here we've got a small photograph on screen here of female kudus. You can see them over here on the right hand side. A very nice sort of stripe pattern there. And it's a good chance that these lions killed a sort of a sub-adult, so probably about twice as big as that youngster there, because the bones They really ate most of the bones. There wasn't much in the way of meat left. Okay, so we are going to go over to Taylor, who happens to have found a very water-loving bird.
We've got some geese called Egyptian geese, and they're a bit of a pest in South Africa. But out here in the wild, they're fine. Nobody seems to mind them at all. And you can see Mum and Dad and their little ones and their goslings who are growing up so quickly. Now, I'm pretty sure this pair of Egyptian geese had a few more goslings than this, because they can lay up to 20 eggs, but unfortunately, not all of those eggs would have hatched. Some of those chicks would have been eaten by these fish eagles around here. There's lots of other raptors that like to catch birds. There's water monitors, which is a big reptile. It's like a baby crocodile, but it isn't. We call them monitor lizards. Maybe you've heard of a Komodo dragon, and you've seen one of those, a mini Komodo dragon. And they like to raid their nests, and they also will eat the chicks. So there's lots of things out here that wants to eat them. But then there's something a little bit better and can fend itself from being attacked by a water monitor or even a crocodile, and that's a hippo. And there are lots of them. Oh, you just saw some more nostrils of the others, but there's an even bigger family just in front of us, and it looks like the little ones are getting ready to play. How happy they are. It's like, when you go swimming with all of your friends, you want to play, you want to throw the ball around, you jump on one another. The hippos will be doing that, especially the little ones. And sometimes there's normally one mom that ends up having to look after all the little babies while the others go and rest in the distance. Not too far away, though. But they form like a little creche where they have one looking out for the little ones, and then they keep each other entertained. But they've been sleeping the whole day. They were very busy last night as they went to go and look for some food. Hey, there we go. And that little one's getting very excited because it knows that it's time to leave the water soon, to go out and look for some grass to eat. Mrs. Jolly, now you've asked if it is spring in Africa. It isn't. Currently we are experiencing autumn. Our spring starts on the 1st of September. But so now we're basically getting to the change of season where the leaves, or as you all know, I think if you're in the States, you experience a better autumn or fall than we do, because there's dramatic changes of color of the leaves, from going to greens to going to oranges and yellows and reds. Only some of the trees lose their leaves in South Africa, and not all of them go those beautiful colors. So it's not as pretty out here. And as we go into winter, all the vegetation, all the leaves, all the grass, all going to disappear. And then there's just going to be sand and dead trees. Well, they're going to look dead, but they just go to sleep for a little bit before they wake up again. What you got up there, Senzo? Another bird. That's a really cool bird. That's called an African darter. And it's waving to all of you. Say hello. Hello, African darter. Looking all beautiful. So what this darter does is it's going to, maybe if we're lucky, what it's doing now is actually just drying its wings out. But it has been for a swim, and they're very, very good swimmers. They'll go underwater, power around, and try and catch fish. They chase after them. But I was going to send you across to Tristan a little bit earlier, but he had some problems, but he's ready to say hello to you.
Indeed we are. So we just had a little technical glitch, but we are definitely ready to say hello from the bushwalk side of things. So as Taylor mentioned, my name is Tristan. On camera I've got VM, the wildebeest, and it is a very, very warm welcome to all of you that are joining us, especially the kids that have joined us this afternoon. Now, hopefully you're going to be asking lots of questions. Remember, send them through to your teacher and they'll send them through to us. Now, what we're trying to do on this bushwalk is we're going to try and look for all kinds of different things. We're going to look for flowers, we're going to look for little insects, as well as any tracks of some of the larger animals. Hopefully we'll get lucky and we'll pick up the tracks of maybe some elephants or some buffalo or something like that, and we can then try and follow it and try and show you some of those big animals on foot. So that's the idea behind our afternoon. We're going to try and kind of see as much as we can, and hopefully there'll be lots of little interesting things for us in this area The bush is quite thick at the moment, and we're in our sort of end of our summer months, so you'll see that the grass is going to be very tall. So we have to pay attention, and we have to look and keep our eyes out and make sure that we have a situation where we are watching what we're doing and making sure that we're not getting ourselves into a place before it's, well, if it's very dangerous. So we have to keep our eyes open, we have to listen very carefully, and we have to watch where we step. So it's going to be important to try and kind of keep as quiet as possible as we go. Now, I'm going to try and see if I can find lots of little things to show all of you. While I do that, let's send you across to Steve, who's got a very ferocious predator. Yes, we have got a voracious predator. Once again, that we can see, boys and girls, is lying extremely flat. Now, this is what lions do for a large portion of their day. They sleep between 15 and 20 hours a day. And yes, Dave, you want to know, do lions only eat meat? And they do. They eat only meat. Every now and again, obviously, when they eat an animal, they eat the fur and the bones and sometimes even the hoof of those young animals. And so then you might see from time to time, oh, look how cute that is. He's giving himself a little cuddle. You might see them eating grass from time to time, and that's to cause them to vomit, to throw up a fur ball that's full of fur and bones that they took in from when they were feeding. Because although these animals look very, very peaceful right now, when they are feeding at the dinner table, they are very, very noisy, and they're fighting each other all the time for as much meat as they can get into their tummy at one go. And that is what causes them to sleep for so long, because they eat so much meat, makes them very tired digesting the meat, and so they just sleep. I'm sure many of you, after Thanksgiving, you have that very big dinner. All you want to do is go and sleep, I'm sure. Now, Michaela, you want to know how fast lions run. Lions can run at a charging speed of about 21 feet a second. So if I work that out into miles, it's at about 42 odd miles an hour. It is very quick, but they are sprinters. They cover very short distance, and if they miss the animal they're trying to hunt, they'll often leave and stop. They don't chase it for very far, so the object of the lion is to try get as close as they possibly can, between 15 and 20 yards before that explosive sprint out of the blocks to then try and catch whatever it is that they have. And what these guys did last night is we followed them, and we saw them walk into the bushes, and they spotted something we couldn't see, and then some of the lionesses went around the other side and then chased the kudu directly back towards the others that were waiting for them. And with their big claws and their very big, powerful legs and chests, they're able to grab things and pull them to the ground. And with their very, very sharp teeth, they are then able to, sad as it might sound, rip the animal apart. It's their own knife and fork, you could say. They've evolved with their own knives and forks in their mouth. There is quite an old lioness. You can see by the size, and the nose is very dark as well. Mr. Sneed, you want to know how big lions get? And the average female lioness gets up to about close to 300 pounds, which is an enormous weight, whereas a male can get up to, let me work it out, close to 450, maybe 500 pounds. So that is about as big as they can get, but that is an enormous animal. If you work out that they can run at 45 odd miles an hour and they weigh that much, there's not many things out there that are able to get away when the lion catches them. So they are very, very powerful. And the benefit that the lions have is that they are in groups. So it's not just one of them. There's a whole pride that is willing to jump on the back of whatever it is they are hunting. So their combined weight and strength is what enables them to take much larger prey than they would do if they were on their own. A warthog would be a fantastic meal for a single lioness or for two, but as I said before, in a pride this size, a warthog would just cause them all sorts of naughtiness between each other. So they need larger prey like wildebeest, buffalo, zebra, and these lions are a very, very successful pride when it comes to hunting buffalo. You wouldn't think that they're dangerous, though, would you? Who wants to go and scratch him under the chin there? Anybody? I wouldn't advise doing it. It seems very tempting. And you see the grass moving there with the deep breaths that they're having. It's not very hot at the moment. It's only 29 degrees Celsius and 81 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a rather cool afternoon, but yet it is still very difficult for them to move because they save condition. Mrs. Hubble, the male lions, you want to know where they are, and I'm actually not sure. In the Sabi Sands itself, the male lions are sort of covering most of the prides of females, and so I think they're somewhere to the southeast, quite a few kilometers away from here at the moment, but there's no real reason for them to be hanging around these females at the moment. None of them are actually reproductive right now, and that is normally the purpose of the males hanging around the pride, is for reproduction. But at the moment they are moving around looking for all sorts of other fertile females, but they will be coming back soon because one of these females had some cubs, and the last of her cubs has disappeared recently. We're not sure where. There was a confrontation of other males that came into the area, and that cub has not been seen since. And I think that was about a week and a half ago, plus minus maybe 2 weeks. And within a month of that cub dying, that female will potentially come into estrus, so into sort of her breeding cycle, and that will very, very likely attract the dominant males to come back into the area to sort of facilitate that. But when the males hang out with the pride, they actually cause all sorts of trouble because they are very competitive and they want all the food for themselves. And when you're much bigger than the females, you're normally allowed to have it, but it doesn't come without clawing and fighting and a punch or two thrown. And quite often these females can get injured when trying to compete with the big males, so they invariably just leave them alone and move off to hunt their own food. There you can see that female in the front there. She's got a gash on her back hip. That was healing very nicely the other day. And since then, this pride was seen interacting with another pride. And it was just north of our boundary, Miss Sheely. And so that individual, that wound, which was very, very bad a number of months ago, was almost healed the other day. But you can see it's ripped open again. And it's looking quite fresh once again. But you can't imagine it was the size of an American football, that gash on the leg there. And it is closed and it's looking far better than it did. But with the confrontation with the lions the other day, it seems to have reopened itself. Look at the love there. Although they are quite sort of powerful when they eat, after eating there's lots of love and cuddling and licking and scratching. So from the largest carnivore in the African continent, we're going to go to the most dangerous with Taylor.
Can you believe that it's the hippo? That is the most dangerous animal in Africa? Because we look at them and they look so happy and so peaceful in the water, don't you think? But the problem comes in is if you want to go swimming with those hippo, they don't take kindly to that, and you'll find yourself in a bit of trouble. So you don't want to play volleyball in the water not volleyball, water polo is probably what it's called, hey? Now, Erin, it's quite easy for these hippos to try and find food because all they have to do is walk out of the water. He was saying it's easy, Erin. Erin, I can find grass anyway. That's what he's basically saying to you. You can hear them all talking to one another. So they like to eat grass. So they'll go out into the open and Senzo, maybe we can just show them how close the grass is. Look, they don't have to go far to that open area. Look how lovely it is. Lush green grass. It's their favorite thing to eat. So they don't have to go anywhere. But remember how I was telling you that as we come into winter, all this nice green grass and the green leaves is going to disappear. Then the hippos have to walk very, very, very far to try and find some food. Sometimes they'll walk many miles and then they've got to come back again before the sun comes up. So they only feed at night time. Sometimes during the day, though, you do see them out of the water and eating. Oh, that one's splashing around saying, I'm hungry. Now, we can't see what's going under the water, hey, because it's a bit brown and murky. Maybe we will see if Senzo wants to go swimming with the hippos with the camera. He doesn't have his wetsuit on, so he can't. And now, Rebecca, I don't know who that question was from. Was it from Cameron? It was from Cameron, hey. I didn't make that name up. I did make the name up. Sorry, Lucas. So hippos don't really swim underwater, Lucas. The water's actually not very deep here. There's actually a little bit of an island here. So what they're doing is they're sinking below and they're going to the floor. You know, like if you blow out all the air when you're in the swimming pool and you sink to the bottom, and then all of a sudden you can walk on the floor. So that's what the hippos are doing. And then they run along the bottom of the water, and when it's shallow and like this, they can actually charge around and they make this huge wake. It's like a huge wave. You could almost go surfing on it. And so they can move very, very quickly through the water. So they're not swimming like that African darter. We've actually got a very nice view of that blackbird sitting on the tree now, on the fallen tree. Sends if we go up to that dead tree. There we go. You can see, look at it's looking down. Let's look at that bird. So that one over there, that's a very, very, very good swimmer. So they've got webbing between their feet, which allows them to pedal very, very quickly. It's like wearing flippers when you go to the beach or even in the swimming pool if you're practicing. And they can move much faster. Having a scratch now. Also got some claws on the end of its toes. Even birds get itchy. He's going to wait there, dry his feathers out before he decides to jump back in and go for another swim. But like I said, this bird eats fish, it'll eat frogs, it'll eat lots and lots of different things that are living in the water. I don't think you'll be able to hear it calling now. Ryder, you've said to me you want to know what the geese are eating. Well, Ryder, I don't know where the Egyptian geese have gone. They're all hiding away now. Oh, there's some here, Senzo, actually in front of us. On the dam wall. There's some geese. So, Ryder, remember how I said when we first saw the Egyptian geese that they're a bit of a pest? It's because they like to eat grass and they also feed on algae and stuff in the water. But golfers don't like Egyptian geese very much at all. They'll eat some grass seeds and things too. It's because the best grass is on a golf course. Hey, you've always seen it on the fairways, on the green. It's lovely and lush. And that's a favorite type of grass of an Egyptian goose. So they're quite lucky. They can feed when they're out on land, and then they can also feed when they're in the water. So they can eat all day long. Wouldn't you like to be an Egyptian goose? I don't think I would, though, because there's lots of things that will eat the Egyptian geese. The crocodiles in the dam might get a bit sneaky and try and snap one up. Otherwise, leopards also love to eat Egyptian geese. So they've got a tough life. They've got to be very, very careful out here. And they're also quite territorial. So what territorial means is that they have a home that they like to protect and they don't like to move away from it. And if any other birds come into that area, they chase them away. And they can chase some of the birds that would normally live here away from their homes because they're bigger than them. So they're not necessarily the nicest birds to others. But Steve has got some lions, and some of those lions are young, and they would like to chase the Egyptian geese around.
Yes, they do. We were actually with these lions last night at a dam further north from here, and the Egyptian geese were getting very upset at the lions that were looking them up and down. And the lions were also looking at some of the hippos that were in the dam, thinking that could be an easy meal, but definitely not. Mr. Smead, you would like to know how big lions' feet are. Ferg's going to try and get you a shot of the lion's back foot. There's the back foot there. And I'm going to have to try and figure this out for you in a mathematical term so that it's easier to understand. But the lion's feet maximum that the female lion's feet can get to is about 13 centimeters, and males get up to about 15 centimeters. So almost the size of a normal human being's hand, a little bit smaller, but almost the same size as that. And it is just packed with muscle. Very, very strong. And the pads are there, very characteristic lions or cats' feet. I can show you on a picture in a moment if we can't get a better picture there. Not showing them very clearly in the grass. How inconvenient these lions are being. We're just trying to have a look. Here we go, Ferg. This one on the left has shown us. This one just far on the left has shown us a foot. Far on the left, Ferg. Here we go. That one's just showing us the bottom of the foot. See if we can get it. Can you see there that the back of the bottom of the foot has got that very characteristic 3 lobes? And that is the back pad, and then they got the 4 toes. And that is what we look for in a track when we're looking for lion or leopard versus something like a hyena, which has only got 2 lobes. All cats have got 3 lobes in the back of their foot. Why that is, I cannot tell you. It's just the way they've been designed. And the pads allow for silent movement. And like most cats, except for the cheetah, the lions are able to take their claws inside. They're called protractile. A lot of people think that they're retractable claws like Wolverine, but they're actually protractile because they need to be forced out to be used, and then they naturally go back inside. So they need to be kept inside and sheathed inside the pad itself to keep them sharp for when they catch their prey. They're able to pull them down. So that is awesome to see the lion's feet. And let's go over to Tristan Dix, who I think is playing in the sand. Copy it. And the lions, for some reason, boys and girls, have decided to get up and do some stretches. There's one standing up. And normally what happens when they stand up, it's because they need a little bit of a toilet break. And some of them are rude. They don't go very far. They'll go right there next to their sisters. There's a little bit of wind blowing. And this one lioness, can you see how she's looking? She's got quite a bit of intention on her face. Any animals could be moving at this time. And if they did come anywhere near, the lions would probably try and hunt them. They are very opportunistic. They'll always try and catch something if it makes itself available. I think the wind and the temperature is just at such a perfect level that the lions might start moving now, or they might lie down again. Aaron, you want to know why lions sleep so long? Well, they have a very high protein diet, and it requires a lot of energy to digest it. So, like I mentioned before, after your Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner, when you've eaten one too many pieces of meat, you have to go and have a nap, don't you? And there's nothing nicer than a long nap after a big meal. And that's exactly what the lions do. Once their bellies are full, they don't need to do anything else. What's going on? What's going on, guys? Something in the wind. Did you hear something, Ferg? Do you see how quickly they stood up there? I've no idea what that was, but quickly they forget all about it. Sometimes just one of them might get a bit of a spook, and the movement of it gets them all up. You can see the young boy is on the right there, busy cleaning his face. Look at those teeth. Look at those teeth when they yawn. Well, while we wait for these lions to stand up, we're going to go back over to Tristan and his little critter.
Well, indeed, this time hopefully you can hear me. And I was saying earlier that it's very good idea when walking around to pay attention to the little things. And we found one of the most interesting little bugs. I had to move my watch because it's trying to get to where it's dark, so I'll have to take that off. Let me move that out the way. Sorry, Vim, if I'm shaking a little bit. But this little guy, I've never ever seen one of these before in my life. It looks like it might be from the kind of aphid shieldbug family, but it's got a very, very strange thing growing on its back. Now, I have no idea what's on its back. It looks like maybe a fungus of some sort. So that little brown thing on the tip there It looks very much like a fungal growth that's coming off of this particular insect. It's hollow on the inside, and it has no purpose, I'm sure, other than either to make it more camouflaged, or it's just a parasite that is on this little insect. And you can see the insect is kind of feeling with its feelers. And the interesting thing about this guy is how camouflaged it is, and it's probably why I haven't seen them before. You might find that there's a situation where there's lots of these little guys, but because it camouflages so well and it's so small, it makes it very difficult to see. And I'm going to show you just how kind of camouflaged it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get it onto the sand again, because that's where it came from. So let's see if it'll come onto the stick first. Come on, little one. Nope, it's good. Now it wants to stay on my arm. So I'm going to try and see, is it on the ground yet? No. There we go. So now look at that. Now that's the camouflage that we're talking about on this little guy. It is very small, and when it's on the sandy soil, the color of its body is exactly the same as the sand. And this little piece on top almost matches some of the stones that we're seeing. Isn't that amazing? So what we call this is cryptic camouflage, and camouflage basically means to hide away. So a lot of animals will have that, and it's normally a good indication that this little guy gets eaten by a lot of things, and that it is not poisonous or toxic or anything like that. Because if it was toxic, then it would have bright colors and things wouldn't eat it. Now it's trying to hide away so that things don't eat it. Now, Mark, insects eat pretty much everything. Some insects will eat plants and grasses. Some eat the pollen of flowers. Others will eat other insects. And even some will eat meat and the droppings of other animals. So you'll sometimes find them even going and eating a bit of poo, which is quite funny. So there's insects that do everything out here. And insects are so important. If you don't have insects, you're going to have a very unhealthy system. And they are important to try and keep everything very, very balanced. And so even without insects, things like the lions are not going to be able to exist. They would probably have a system where this whole thing would probably collapse. So very important to pay attention to insects. Right, we're going to carry on walking because we didn't get very far when we spotted that insect. We just saw it kind of on the road, and we decided that we would just sit and have a little look at it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to carry on walking up this road towards a sort of grey, cloudy sky where it looks like there might be a bit of rain. And we're going to try and head that way because there was a report that there were 2 male lions somewhere up that side. So we're going to go try and see if we can find some tracks for those 2 male lions. They're 2 males that haven't been seen in a very long time, so I'm very keen to try and see them. Now, while we walk along, I'm going to keep my eyes out. It's also very windy today, so we have to make sure that when we're walking, we try and walk kind of into the wind so that we don't give ourselves away too much. Good. Now, while we carry on, and I was talking about lions, let's send you back across to Steve with the lions that have gotten up.
Yes, well, we thought they were getting up, but all they've done is a little bit of a stretch. And there we go. Look at that yawn. Isn't that cute? It's a little youngster, but don't let it fool you, boys and girls. We were watching that youngster last night when they were eating that kudu, and they are very, very powerful young individuals who compete very fiercely for meat, and it's very important for them to do so, because if they don't compete, they won't have the strength to do their role as a lion, and the pride strength will always decrease. So the strength is important from a young age, even when they are cubs. Look at that yawn. It's probably going to stand up soon. That is the young male. Even when they are cubs, they compete for the milk from their mother. And if they're not strong enough to compete for milk, then they will not make it as an adult lion. They need to be very competitive from a young age. And because they are so competitive, then they have to be so loving and caring for each other the next day. Okay, well, we're going to stay here with these lions, and let's go over to Taylor, who has something that's a surprise with spots.
Oh, welcome back, everyone. Look who we've got for you. We've got a leopard that is eating a late lunch. Now, it's very difficult to see which leopard this is, but I think it's our young friend named Hosanna. But it's very difficult to tell, as you can see, because he's buried in the grass. And the reason why I say I'm not sure that it is him is because I know that his father, whose name is Tingana, he is the resident male in this area, so he actually lives here. Remember how we were talking about Egyptian geese being territorial, how they protect their homes? Well, leopards do the same thing. And I know that his son, Hosanna, who's not supposed to have any conversations with him, but they have a very strange and interesting relationship. The two of them hanging around together, well, more so Hosanna trying to go and visit Dad all the time, but he doesn't want to talk to him because they normally leave when they're young. The boys, or the male leopards, don't play any part in raising the young cubs. It's just Mom that normally looks after them. And I don't know if he's come in here and maybe stolen the kill away from him, but I think it is young Hosanna. But hopefully, I don't know how much meat is left on that little antelope. I think it looks like a little dacre, which is quite a small antelope. And he'd eat that quite quickly. Well, both Tingana and Hosanna would be able to eat that very, very, very easily. Oh my goodness. Now, obviously, leopards are very strong creatures and so are lions. But it seems as though Tristan has found one of the strongest of them all.
Well, these guys are very, very, very strong creatures, and they're strong because they can help each other, and so that's how they're able to move big pieces of meat. And so this looks like a little piece of meat that they've found somewhere, and all these ants are working together to carry this back to where the nest is. Isn't it incredible how they're going about it? It looks like a piece of meat. Like I say, I can't really tell for sure, and I don't want to touch it because I don't want to disturb them. But much like the lions work together as a pride to try and hunt and find food, so ants do the same, as they'll try and protect themselves as well as to find food as a unit. Now, what's amazing about these ants is look at how they are able to walk either backwards or forwards, and they'll push and pull depending on which side they are. So these guys are talking to each other via chemicals called pheromones, and they're telling each other, okay, we need to move it this way, so some of you need to push, some of you need to pull, and that's how they're going to do it. Isn't that amazing? It's very, very cool. Now, some ants will even do this when there's times of flooding. So if some water comes down, the ants will join together, and because they join together, they make a much bigger surface area. Now, surface area is basically how much of a footprint or how much space you take up on the top of water, and so when they combine like this, it allows them to float even when it's flooding. So one ant would drown, but together they're able to float. But this is so amazing. That piece of meat for us is like picking up a car and walking with it. So together they're able to do it, and they'll take it to wherever they need to be able to then go and feed off it. It's absolutely incredible. Now you'll see lots of other ants will come in and out and they'll move around. That's because they're probably still looking for more food. Ants' work is never done. So even though these guys have got food, the rest of the colony needs to go and find as much food as possible in order to try and feed everybody and to make sure that the eggs grow nicely and that the queen stays nice and healthy. It's an amazing, amazing thing to see. Like I say, ants are one of my favorite insects. They are so small, but they're so well organized, and they really do a great job at being kind of one of the most insanely clever insects that we have out here. Now, I'm not going to disturb these guys too much. They're busy carrying their food off to wherever they want to go for dinner. But talking about food, our little leopard with Taylor has managed to get himself a meal.
He is munching his lunch and he's enjoying every minute of it, Tristan. And I bet that he is happy and that he's got a meal to keep his belly nice and full. Now, Ryder, if this is the young prince that we're thinking of, and Hosanna, and I'm just looking at his ears look nice and neat. His dad's ears are very, very tatty in comparison to his. So he's just over 2 years old. So he's still quite young, but he's a big boy, especially when he's just eaten so much food. You know what happens when you go to a buffet, or if you've looked at Mom and Dad after Christmas or Thanksgiving. Hey, how much they can eat. Now, we're obviously not seeing him on the go, but leopards can move around quite amazingly. And Amani, they can run really, really fast. But what's more exceptional than how fast they can run, it's basically how many meters they can cover in just a couple of seconds. So a leopard can charge at 24 meters per second. I have no idea what that is in miles. I'm very sorry, I don't have much signal to try and convert it, but maybe your teacher can help you out. So 24 meters per second is his charging speed. And I reckon at top speed, a leopard could get to about 70 kilometers an hour, but that's not going to last very long at all. It's a very, very short-lived chase that. It's like the same with lions. They can only run it for a little bit, but they rely on stalking and getting up close to their prey and right underneath them before they pounce. But you don't often see leopards running at full speed unless they're being chased by a lion. Wow. So per foot, I suppose that would be, is that 3 feet per second? If I'm right, how fast would that be? So say again, Bex, 53 miles. I don't know, what's the conversion? Can someone do the entire conversion? Because I think 1 meter is equal to 3 feet. There we go. Well, they can move very quickly. They can run a lot faster than you and I could run. Now, if we look very closely at these leopards, you'll see that they haven't quite just got spots on their bodies, Rylan. They've got rosettes. So that is why leopards have rosettes and spots on their bodies, for camouflage. So you can see how that actually helps blend into the vegetation, into the trees, into the leaves. They're not going to be spotted very well at all. So it's quite cool the way that they're able to conceal themselves like that. But all animals have got different types of camouflage. But next time we'll talk a little bit more about camouflage when you join us again. But thank you to the 3 schools that jumped on board Safari with us. We loved having you today, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your school day. And, well, remember to do your homework and listen to your teacher. Don't be too naughty in class. But for the rest of you, we'll chat again soon. And in the meantime, I'm going to send you across to Steve.
And you are back with us. The lions are slowly getting up, and some are starting to move off. There's been a few toilet stops. Some of them have been lady enough to move off from the rest. The one on the right not being so ladylike. But one is starting to move. The wind is coming from our right-hand side, and it's a good chance the ladies are going to start moving in a sort of northerly direction from where we are now, sort of a northwest. And we might get them moving, which would be awesome. It's quite early in the afternoon, but because it's quite cool and because the conditions are very, very favorable, it's windy, it's overcast, it's an ideal time to do some hunting. They don't expend too much energy moving in these conditions. One of the lionesses has moved off ahead. I can't see where she's gotten to now. She's just standing in the road. Frank, I haven't seen any of the Birmingham boy males for some time, but just on our southwesterly sort of boundary, westerly boundary, I heard there was a report of 2 males there this morning. I'm not sure who they are exactly. They're not the Birmingham boys, they're not the Evoca males. I think Brent was with one of them last night, and now there are 2 there at the moment. So they would only cause trouble if they came around here. And there could be a whole lot of drama if they do move into the area, as there are some youngsters in this pride, like the one you see in the picture, that will get properly beaten by a big adult male. And if those males call, you will very invariably see this pride of lions moving in the opposite direction. So it looks like they're slowly moving towards the road there. I'm going to move up. Fergie, should we wait here or should we move up? Wait for a second, because there's some stretching happening, some cuddling happening. And there's some bites on the neck, and this is playtime. Oh, isn't that gorgeous? This is the favorite time with lions, when they start being very playful and loving with each other. But they're going to do some grooming. They're going to start moving soon. We'll stay with them. But while we do that, let's go over to Tristan and find out what he's going to be doing this afternoon.
Well, the plans are to stay away from that in the distance, which is a whole bunch of rain that is falling down on the Drakensberg Mountains. It seems as though it's going past us at the moment, so we shouldn't have to worry too much with it. So we're going to try and stay away from that, as well as to go and try and find these male lions that Steve was talking about. Now, Steve was mentioning 2 male lions. The ones that he's referring to are the Matimbas, not the Birminghams, which I know seems like a shock because the Matimbas have not been around at all. But apparently, the 2 of them are not far from where I am now. They should theoretically have been basically just on the other side of this thicket. So they were on One-Eyed Pan, which is a pan that's just inside Simambili. It's not even 50 meters from our boundary. So I thought with the kind of weather conditions that we've got today, it might be a really good idea just to head through these thickets into this drainage line that runs kind of that direction and try and see if maybe they came across our side. The one I believe is looking very frail and very, very skinny. The other one is in a situation where he's actually got quite a round, fat tummy and is looking actually quite good. So it's going to be interesting to see if the one drags the other one out or if they're just going to lie there. But worth a try and worth to go see. It's been a long time since the Matimbas have been seen on our drives, that's for sure. And so it would be really good to catch up with them. What makes me wonder is where they came from, because no one really picked up any tracks at all. And so I'm surprised that they've arrived on Simambili without us knowing. Anyway, we're going to carry on. There's actually going to be hopefully no rain where we're heading. While we do that, let's send you back across to Taylor and that very, very colourful cat, Hosanna.
Otherwise, Tristan, I think you're going to have to show us how you can make an umbrella out of, I don't know, some leaves. I'm trying to give Tristan a challenge this afternoon. He's going to build an entire shelter for us. Wouldn't that be quite funny? Tristan the caveman. Anyways, we're with Hosanna, who's not a caveman. He's a beautiful young prince who is feasting away. I don't know how much of this daycare is actually left because it's, well, you can see what I'm seeing. It's very difficult to see what's going on in there. I can hear some crunching though, so perhaps he's chewing through some of the leg bones. It does look like he's got a leg there, hey? And because a dacre is such a small animal, I mean, a leopard has got a strong enough bite force to be able to clamp his jaws on down and chew through some of those smaller bones. It's not just the hyenas that can get the bones, but their digestive system is slightly different, and they aren't able to digest the bones to the extent that hyenas are. That's really cool, eh? With those big teeth. I'm glad Tingana hasn't found him just yet. He better gobble that up quickly. Perhaps that's why he's having a mid-afternoon snack, trying to get rid of it as quick as possible before somebody else does come through. Although I don't think he's going to have a problem if a hyena comes around and there's a big Maruda tree quite close by. He can just take it up. Like I said, in comparison to the size of Hosanna, a dacre is small. And he's a fairly strong cat. Although, Brent's had a couple of cracker sightings, and Jamie, and well, even myself and James, where they've toppled on around on very flimsy branches. And to be honest, I haven't seen Hosanna taking a kill up the tree, and so I don't know how majestic he is. Perhaps he is a clumsy clut, which is quite funny. And we always tease Hosanna, we call him the clown, because that's what he is. Just his entire mannerism around Tingana, just the things that he does, it's always like he's getting up to no good, but not sort of maliciously. He can't help himself, which makes him so funny to watch. But I reckon by this evening he'll probably be done with that and be off looking for something else. I don't know when he actually killed it. I think Tristan was here. You were here with Tristan, hey, Senzo? Had he just killed it, or do you think he'd been eating on it for a little while?
No, he wasn't eating it. He killed it.
Oh, okay.
And then the other male came to see if it's the female still alive.
Ah, okay. Very interesting. So it's a fairly fresh kill. But I don't think he'll leave it on the floor tonight. I think that would be a silly mistake. This area around Chitwa seems to be a corridor for the hyena. You always see hyena tracks here, and I can't tell you how many hyena sightings I've had in this area. With their super sense of smell, they might pick up on the scent, and the wind is swirling quite a bit, or maybe they'll even hear him gnawing on the bones. So Steve doesn't seem to be having too much luck this afternoon with the lions, even on this moody day with the wind and the build-up of big clouds, but perhaps they will wake up. Let's go see what those lionesses are up to.
Well, they have woken up and they've started moving at least 30 odd meters from where we had them before, about as far away as where we saw them this morning on foot, Ferg and myself. And we have got the majestic amber eyes here. And you might notice, and we were getting a bit worried because she was looking straight through us a moment ago. We moved forward, but what she is in fact doing is she's looking at some vultures in the sky. And we'd love to show you the vultures, but because you've got the roof on, it's going to be very difficult to do that. We have the roof on in case of rain, but at least we know now she wasn't giving us a death stare. She was looking straight through us at the vultures. And it's not uncommon. I mean, we find predators and we find kills by following vultures. And I've seen lions do that on many occasions. I've even seen cheetah that as soon as a vulture arrives on the scene have abandoned their kill and left, because lions and hyenas are known to follow them in. Such a beautiful female, Amber Eyes, isn't she? I know she's a crowd favorite out there. Sir, you would like to know, very interesting question that a lot of people like to know, and it's got to do with cubs in a pride and when will males leave them alone. Well, while they are cubs and while they are forcing their parents or their mother to suckle, they will kill them, invariably. Some males don't kill cubs, but it can happen anywhere up to about 15 months, 18 months. After that, females that are left in the pride actually become sexually viable and so might be allowed to stay in the pride, and any young male would be forced out, chased away. But it's for the 2 years after breeding that females will not have cubs while they have their youngsters with them. So by killing any cub up till 2 years will bring that female back into estrus. So it's got to be around that sort of time. And obviously if the female comes into estrus a bit earlier and the males come in and find her in estrus, there's no need to kill her cubs, even if they are still a little bit young. But invariably it's between about maybe 16, 18 months to maybe almost 2 years, somewhere around there. I don't think it's a fixed number, but it's also not always the case. Males don't always kill cubs, but it is more common in the population due to the fact that a male that kills cubs breeds more than a male that does not. So we're being joined in the sighting by one of the Juma vehicles. So if you do see or hear a vehicle, well, that is them. Amber Eyes is checking them out, seeing what it is that they're doing, making sure her pride is still good and happy. And so far, everything is good. One has gone down to the water to drink. Another one is on its way. Do you want to go check it out, Fergie? Oh, are we going to just disturb them too much if we move too much? Okay. Yes, the pupils are so small because of the dilation that they're able to do. The light is very, very bright. We were looking at these lions last night with the infrared, and the pupils were completely enlarged, covering the entire eye. Or maybe not the entire eye, but that is one of the things predators or nocturnal predators are able to do, is they're able to change or control the dilation of that pupil. So when the light is strong like it is now, it's not that strong to be honest, but when it's quite strong or light, their pupils get very small, allowing in a very small amount of light. And as they go and the darkness prevails, the pupils become a lot bigger. So I don't know if any of you have got a domestic cat at home, but my cat I used to have, whenever it used to come from outside and suddenly materialize inside, it would arrive in with these shockingly enormous pupils. And it was always quite something to behold, how the cat also seemed very on edge. It's been out in the wilderness, out in the dark, and the pupils are completely enlarged. But soon and quickly they sort of go back to their smallness due to the lights inside. So the pupil is like a shutter on a camera. The wider it is, the more light it lets in. So obviously when it's darker, they need to open the pupil more to allow more light in. And when it's brighter, they close the pupil. So that's how they control the amount of light going in. It's what enables them to see in the pitch black. Okay, well, while we stay with this pride of lion, let's go over to Taylor with Husana.
We're sadly not going to be able to stay here for too much longer. We will lurk around in the area and see if we can't jump back in a little further down the lineup. But I'm hoping he's just going to keep gobbling this up and eventually go for a little drink of water. There's a couple of pans that are not too far away from here. And after a big meal like that, you can expect a big cat to go for a drink to quench their thirst. Also help them with digestion. He's just munching away. I'd love to know how much is actually left. I also can't see the size of Hosana's belly, if he has just been tucking into this kill for most of the day. It hasn't been hot. Been a couple of moments where it's been on the warmer side of things, but generally it's been quite cool. Lots of clouds constantly passing over. You can see there's a bit of a breeze. Actually, we're quite sheltered here. It's a bit more than a breeze, but I'm sure you can see that with Tristan on bushwalk. You see how he's using his feet to just hold that kill in place as he tries to scissor away with, using the carnassial shear, try and cut through some of that flesh. Philip, you've just mentioned that the male leopard politics have been sort of a bit crazy at the moment, and you've asked how are the female sort of politics with the leopards. Just as crazy as it is with the boys, I'm afraid. With Hukumuri coming on in, that's obviously caused a bit of a stir, and we've definitely seen the leopardesses of the northern Sabi Sand, or the ones that we see around Djuma, around sort of Torchwood, Arathusa, Simbambili, Chitwa, all these places, has definitely changed, and they've retreated, wanting to keep out of the way, especially the leopards with the young cubs that weren't sired by Hukumuri, and they're going to want to stay clear. So it's a bit strange at the moment. We're not really sure what's happening with Tandi, whether it was her tracks that I had with a set of cub tracks. I know Brent was saying he thinks it's the leopard from Buffelshoek. The only thing, though, is that I'd driven all those roads, and there was already that sighting established in the morning, and these tracks were fairly fresh. So I'm still uncertain. I mean, Tandi's behavior points to her losing the cub, but we won't know for certain, will we? I mean, she could have just gone into serious stealth mode now and hiding that little one away. And then we don't know where Shadow and her little one have gone either. Remember, we can't drive everywhere. And not everybody is in tune with the leopard characters or the lion characters, as some of us are. So they could have moved anywhere, and they might just be being called a different name, and we're overlooking something. So she could have just moved further south, further west. Who knows? Maybe she's even moved into the Manuletti. It's very, very difficult to sort of say, and we just got to wait and see until we get an opportunity to find all these cats again. But perhaps things will settle down soon enough. It's interesting, though, hey, everything's a bit weird. Leopard dynamics, lion dynamics, big storms rolling on in, last of the rains before the dry season sort of hits us. It's all happening at once. But unfortunately, we are going to have to make a move, because it does sound like there are a couple of other guides that want to come into the sighting. But like I said, we will try and come back in. I won't go too far. We'll just bumble about and investigate and see if we can maybe find some birds and things like that. But Tristan is on a walk, as you all know, this afternoon. What he's looking for, I'm not so sure. Hopefully he finds some cool things.
Well, yes, I am on a walk. It would be very difficult not to be, unfortunately, using my legs. What would we call it if we didn't have legs? Would it be a crawl on our arms? Or would it be a handstand? I don't know. Be interesting. A slither. Yes, should we slither, Vildy? Maybe I should get in and slither along. So we're still walking towards kind of the boundary where we're hoping that these male lions pop out. So Herbie's kind of just in front of me, and we're on a major game path that runs pretty much towards the direction we want to head. So this path that we're on now should spit us out just south of where we want to go, and we want to head a little bit towards that and then just check if there's anything crossing. I suspect, given that I can hear quite a few vehicles going up and down, that they might still be lying on the Simambili side, but it's worth a double check and worth just kind of seeing if we can find them, given that, like I say, that we don't see them very often. Also, I want to check if they came from our side or if they came from the southern side, and see kind of which way possibly they're going to move throughout the night. Now, while we're walking there, Herbie in front of us has been snacking. I believe Herbie's... did you have lunch today, Herbie? See, Herbie's laughing at me because he knows that I'm talking about the guarri bushes at the moment. So as we've been walking along, these guarri bushes, as you can see here, are packed with fruit at the moment. And so Herbie walks along, and as we're going, I just see him veering off course every now and then, and he goes to a bush and he just picks some guarris. Now, what he's looking for is these ones at the back here. So you see this particular one that is nice and red and kind of got a very deep color to it. That's the ones that you want. These green ones that are on the rest of the tree, so you can see I'll put it next to the green ones over there. Those green ones on the next, or on the rest of the tree, those are still packed with tannins and are not really very tasty at all. These redder ones are much better. Now this one is still probably got a little bit of a way to go. I shouldn't have really picked it because it's probably not quite right. You can see on the top part it's got a nice deep red color, but if I turn it, it's actually got a very light red color. Now that will still be a little bit bitter towards the bottom, but the top part will be nice and kind of sweet on there. So these are about to be fed on by so many different things. You'll find kudu, nyala, giraffe, elephants, all kinds of birds that will be coming to the feast that is these guarri berries. So it's a really, really cool thing to have around at this time of the year, and it becomes a hive of activity, these particular plants. And you can see how many berries are on them. That's why Herbie kind of goes past. And like I say, I always laugh at him because as we walk, I just see him kind of going and just picking one or two and then just shoves them in his mouth and then carries on again. Now, I'm not quite sure why Steve doesn't have lions but has antelope. Maybe the lions are beginning to wake up and start to go towards the antelope.
Yes, we do, Tristan. We have got some nyala, a little nyala family. And we moved out of the lion sighting for a little bit as there's some interest from other vehicles to come in and see. So we thought we'd give them all some space. But never fear, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go back there shortly. I've asked them to keep me updated with regards to the movements, and if the lions start moving, we will go back and follow. But we moved away, and we've driven along the road where the lion tracks have been coming down, and this small family of nyala is walking around very cautiously with their ears moving left and right because they can smell lions in the air. There is a little young male, only a few months old, and there's a female. Sorry about the pole, ladies and gentlemen. We do have a roof on. It is a rainy day. Nyala, all animals are really, I believe, are born with a very, very good sense of smell. They do understand it from an early age. And from day one, if smell is what keeps you alive, you learn to develop it and hone it even more. We've got a fantastic sense of smell, but because we live in cities, or a lot of people live in cities, we tend to try and ignore the smells that are around rather than trying to focus on them. So I was watching the lions last night when we were following them, and they actually follow each other through the long grass through smell. Whenever some of them peeled off and walked off-road, the others knew exactly where they'd gone without any other sign out there apart from the smell. I once followed a young male lion about 3-4 kilometers with his nose to the ground as he tracked his pride and found them. I wish I was able to track lions like that. Their sense of smell is very, very acute. I once had a white rhino sighting where we were walking and we saw a white rhino coming from a very long way away. We quickly walked across this game path, went and sat up on these rocks, and it took the rhino about half an hour or so to get to where we were. It was slowly sort of feeding, and it was quite a windy day like today, and as it hit the spot where we'd crossed the road, it stopped dead and its entire behavior changed. It could smell where we'd stepped. So I find that incredible, how in tune these animals are. And a lot of you have probably seen the use of dogs for tracking of people. always is very, very impressive. So, ladies and gentlemen, please, if you have any questions or comments, hashtag Safari Live, or post your questions or comments on the YouTube stream. Let us know what you think. Let us know what's going on in your mind and thoughts this afternoon. Let us know what you do if you're an Inyala trying to camouflage in the long grass with the marauding pride of lions nearby. Would you be as calm as these guys are? Suppose they're in a constant state of flux. You know, they're never relaxed. There's always death on the doorstep when you're an antelope out here, so you get used to living like that, I suppose. Constantly living in the moment, constantly in tune with what you're hearing, what you're smelling, and feeding to keep your condition up. Look at the nose, is constantly moving there. Nedra, I'm thinking Nyala horns start growing after about 4 to 5 months, maybe 6 months. That guy there is about 6 months, I would say. But you actually, after 2 months, you start getting this little nip coming out the top of the head, quite similar to that of the impala. And then they continue to grow until adulthood. That's why you can see that individual in the picture is not an adult yet. He is still very small. His horns are about the size of a bushbuck's horns. And there's a very, very little youngster. He still hasn't changed his color yet. Marvelous that we get in to see them. We don't often get to spend too much time with a family of nyalas. We do have some prominent males that we see around Buyatela Dam that we often spend time with, but nice to see a little family. And they're a good understanding of the sexual dimorphism of the males. And he's got the horns first of all, and then the white mane on the back, and the chocolatey brown. But he still sports the orange socks that the females have. You can see the difference in color between the female coming into picture. Okay, well, let's go back over to Taylor, who's left a cat that would love a nyala for breakfast. Let's see what she's up to.
I promise we'll try and get back in there. The radio is going crazy today. I'm not sure everybody's going to see lions and leopards. Let me just turn that game drive radio off very quickly. Senzo, do you not have comms? Okay, Senzo is doing this to me. That's language. So what I thought we would do is come and have a quick scratch for Kutaba in some of her favorite areas. I don't think she well rewarded with a Tungana Hosana sighting, which is not too bad. So I want to see if she's come back to her sort of old hunting grounds that she loves so much in the east. And then, of course, as we're driving along, we're looking for anything. I think we might be lucky and see a couple of millipedes today, so I'll keep my eyes out for them. And birds. Birds is actually what we're looking for. Come on, birdie birds. Where are you? It's a very cool day. It's actually going to be quite chilly, in fact. And Steve, it's not a competition. He's got the birds.
We have found some birds, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you have seen these before on Juma. This is my first time seeing these in my 3 months here. And I wonder if any of you out there knows what raptor this is. It is a pair. They have got feathers to the feet. Let's see how many of you avid birders out there are. Please hashtag Safari Live. Let us know what bird species this is. If it turns around, you'll see it's got quite a nice whitish chest and a little bit of a toilet break there. They are very effective in the fact that they hunt as a pair. There goes one. You hear the squirrel alarm calling as it took off, and there goes the other. Beautiful. What this bird will often do is one will flush the prey, and the second will come in from the side and successfully grab them. I've seen them with guinea fowls, I've seen them with francolins, squirrels, I've also seen them with mongooses and hyraxes. So hunting in pair is a very, very good way of succeeding out there in the bird kingdom, and then they will share because they are a pair. Please hashtag Safari Live. Let me know what bird species you think that was. I will give you the answer shortly. But I'd like to see how many of you have seen them before. puma, they do look quite similar to osprey, but it's not an osprey. If it was an osprey, I would have been very, very excited. I've only seen them twice in my life, osprey, but this is a much more common raptor species in the savannah, although that is the first time that I have seen them here on Djuma, and often seen in a pair. That is one of the giveaways, but the coloration is quite similar, although slightly different, if that makes any sense. Peaheart is not a peregrine falcon, too small, but the colors are quite similar to that. I know we didn't get the best view of them in the world, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a picture. If you just give me a moment to find it in here. I'm going to cover the sign so you can't see the name. There is the bird. A much better look at it. Aha. That's a better look. Now you've all seen it. Let's see if with your bird apps or your bird books out there you're able to identify this bird for me. And see, it's not a peregrine falcon. Remember and bear in mind that the feathers go all the way to the feet. All the way to the feet over there. Okay, that is a sure sign giveaway of this type of species. Okay, so that is it there. We're going to close the book now. Paula, you are very smart. Paula said it is a flying bird. Well done, Paula. You're very correct in saying that. Just pulling over here. This is a game viewer on their way down. And I think, did you say we're going to bushwalk next? I think we're going to bushwalk. I'm not 100% sure. If we are, we'll see you soon.
You are indeed, Steve. You're sending to us. Now, we've got a sort of scuff mark on the ground. It's very difficult to see at the moment, but basically it comes from here like this, and it comes along, and then it carries on there. Now, there's a few indicators as to what this could be. There's a number of things that you would use to try and determine what track this is. Now, it's very, very obscured, and it's very difficult to actually see it, but essentially what you've got is you've got a rather thin And then if you have a look here, you see you've got a bit of dung from what looks like an Egyptian goose that has been flattened completely. And then you've got some sort of wrinkles that are around, also with some lines over here. So what this is a rather fresh elephant track. Now, you can't see it at all. And so you have a situation where you've got a very fresh elephant track, but it shows you how hard it is to track at the moment. We're talking about tracking cats and padded animals or with padded feet, and elephants who are massive and heavy. You would think they would leave really definite signs. But over here you can see it is very difficult. And the only reason we know that they're quite fresh is because they're pretty much on top of everything. They've nicked the end of this impala track a little bit, and there's these little striations from the hairs on the elephant trunk itself, and then these little wrinkles over here are from the foot. Now, these tracks were very, very fresh, and the reason why we knew that they were insanely fresh is because as we were walking up the road, Jim from Djuma, he came past us with the staff transport, and these tracks were on top of his vehicle, and that was a little earlier on. But unfortunately, the problem is that where we are now is right up close towards Sydney's Dam and on the boundary, and so if he's not at Sydney's Dam, which I don't think he's going to be, I don't think we're going to find this elephant. I was a bit excited at first because I thought we were going to be able to find it and see it somewhere here, but it seems like our Ellie, I think, has moved on already. But let's just double check at the dam itself and see what we can find. Remember, kids, you've got to look right and left and right again. Was it left and right and then left again? I never remember how those things as you... Exactly, Rebecca. It does depend on what country you're in. So here in South Africa, it's left, right, left. If you are in other parts of the world, like the US, where they drive on a different side of the road, then it's right, left, right. Now, before we go anywhere, it seems like we've maybe spotted this elephant. So Herbie says to me, you can see something. So let's quickly just try and get up here, because I don't think we're going to have too long to be able to see it. I'm just trying to look if I can see it. I can't see it now. I think it's gone over the dam wall, or it might be at the water itself. So I just want to head across. Herbie's just in front of me saying to me that it's going away from us, that we might get a long distance view of it walking away, but let's try and check. Like I said, they were very fresh tracks. We must have just missed him, but he's actually still kind of around by the sounds of things. Can you see him there, Herbs? Ah, there he goes. So our big bull, Ellie, is walking away from the water. He's already had a drink. And now he's just ambling off down away from Sydney's Dam, deeper into Buffelshoek and possibly even the Manuleti. It's a pity we missed him. He looks like a fantastic sort of specimen of a male elephant. He's a big, beautiful view. Now, Viam's doing a sterling effort to be able to see that. That is very far away at the moment. So doing a wonderful job. Well done, Bildy. Now, this bull elephant will have no idea that we're here, given that we're following the tracks. The wind is also pushing from the right side of that elephant to the sort of south west, so it will be going from his sort of front right across to where we are, and so he won't be picking up our scent, and the noise that we're making from here is definitely not enough for him to actually turn and see. But it's a pity we missed him. We must have, as you can see, been 10 minutes behind him, being on our side where we could have done a really nice kind of approach and watched him walking over the road. But anyway, it was exciting, always good to see an elephant on foot, and we haven't been seeing too many, so happy with that. Right, let's carry on and see what else we can find, and see if maybe these males have crossed over. While we do that, let's send you back across to Taylor.
Tristan, well done. Hey, following your nose today and rewarding yourself with an elephant on foot. Very, very cool. Nice to see 1 or 2 elephants around at the moment. I'm just waiting on the return of the breeding herds. So we've popped down into this drainage system, sort of in the area where Tristan last had Kuchava and her little one. And we're having a squiz because we still haven't seen any more tracks at all. So I wonder if she hasn't just got a kill somewhere around here. But it is so thick, the grass is tall, there are lots and lots of trees, which is going to make it quite difficult for us to try and find her. I was hoping we're going to have lots of birds alarming. Maybe she'd be on the move because it's a nice cool day. Not yet. We will try and have a look for Tingana too. I'm not actually sure where Tingana was. I think Tristan said he was around here somewhere. So I'll have to ask Tristan at some point where he last left him, because I like spending time with Tingana. And I think it's important that we do spend as much time as we can with him. Well, because he's not the youngest fella anymore. Let's go. Ooh, let's go this way and have a little look. The birds are also hiding for us. Ah, okay, so apparently he was last seen at the dam wall. Shall we go and scratch around behind the dam? I think that's what we will do. So we'll go the scenic way around. We'll jump down one of these roads that go sort of through the Mulanini, and then we'll go in front of the dam and sort of stop and have a look along the way for some birds. I'm sure we'll see the green-backed heron. Maybe we'll see some crakes that like to live on the island. So we'll look for all those different types of things. I like watching the green-backed herons fishing. It's always quite funny. Maybe the darter has dived in for another dip. Who knows? We'll see now. Okay, we're going to go down here, and then we're going to go past the ruins. Knowing Tingana, though, it wouldn't surprise me if he was just sitting under our noses. So when we left the dam during the school drive, we actually heard a waterbuck alarm call, and then everyone scattered right on the southern corner of the dam. So I don't know if they maybe got a whiff of Tingana. Perhaps. Oh, there's some waterbuck that have got their ears pricked. We better check down here because, well, this is Tingana's favourite spot near room 11. He loves it. But just up and in the distance is waterbuck. There's also some guinea fowl feeding in and amongst their feet, or their hooves, should I say. And waterbuck of varying sizes. Everyone's nervous there. Also some starlings flying around at the moment. Noriko, now it's actually not that cold. I'm being a bit of a sissy today, and because you've now commenting on my scarf and my jersey. Apparently it was 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 27 degrees Celsius, but I completely disagree with that. Senzel's got his bright red shuka wrapped around his body. He's also got a big hoodie on. I'm going to guess, and I would say it's probably about 24 degrees Celsius, somewhere around there. But as we're driving, there's a bit of a chill in the wind today. So it's not necessarily the temperature, it's more so the wind chill that's making us a little bit cold. I could probably still drive around in short sleeves through it. I mean, I've got shorts on, so I was at Brent the other day. It was my favorite thing, actually, for the birding day. I completely forgot who drew the beautiful watercolored bird versions of myself, Tristan, and Brent. And Brent's one was with his hat, his scarf, his shorts, and his flip-flops. That is just South Africa for you. That's what we do. No one ever wears long pants in South Africa. We have shorts, and we just keep the upper body warm. It also must be a guide thing, I suppose. So something gave the waterbuck a fright, but nothing that they sort of startled and ran away. They just, well, I suppose, had a quick squiz around. No one panicked too much. That little one is quite sweet, the way he's hanging around the big boys. And I'm pretty sure this is the same bachelor group we have been seeing over the last few days. Remember, was it yesterday afternoon or the afternoon before? These days all just merge into one. I can't keep up anymore. No, it wasn't yesterday afternoon. It was the afternoon before we had the beautiful waterbuck sighting. I don't think we'll be having one of those today, I'm afraid, because the sun is not going to play ball. And you know what we are going to do is we'll have a quick look at this beautiful waterbuck. Look how massive his horns are. I still don't think as big as the set that I managed to scavenge after the lions had eaten a beautiful big bull. Using them to have a bit of a scratch. Lots of insects around. Now, I believe you've been playing lots of games with Steve. Very nice. We'll see if we can't play a few of our own. Let's go back across to him to find out what birds were sitting in a tree.
You are back. I wonder if anyone out there has managed to figure out what bird it is that we showed you. Monty and Matt, you think martial eagle is sometimes confused with the marshal, but size, it's too small, and the marshal has got spots on the chest rather than streaks. So that is not the right answer, but a good guess, and the marshal's also got a solid dark cap on the head. Way! Jane, Fiona and Ravinda, well done, ladies. I think they were all ladies. You have nailed it on the head. It is indeed an African hawk eagle. And let me show you the picture once again. There we have this beautiful bird. And it can be mistaken for a martial eagle, but size is very, very important. And beautiful bird. Absolutely beautiful bird. Let me show you a martial eagle. I'm going to have to take my book back. Sorry. It is probably just on the next page. But there it is. There is the martial. You see the solid neck up to the head and spots rather than streaks. I know when we got the actual sighting of the bird, we didn't see the chest very well, but I showed you the picture. The martial eagle, the enormous talons. Often you can see this crest standing up on the back of the head and that very orange eye. It is an enormous bird, the martial eagle. And I actually have never seen them in a pair hunting. I've seen them on a nest, but never out and about hunting. So that is one of the things that, I'm going to close now, Fergie. That's one of the things that is quite sort of characteristic with African hawk eagle, is their hunting strategy together. Another bird of prey that hunts together is the rose eagle or the black eagle, and they evolved to hunt rock daisies or hyraxes. And what the eagle started doing was using the sun as sort of a masking. Oh, there went a duiker straight across the road. I doubt we're going to see it again. But the black eagle or rose eagle used to go with the sun behind it to go and take the rock daisies off the rocks. And how is this for evolution in action? The rock daisy developed a sort of a second eyelid that is able to close like a pair of polarizing sunglasses, so it can look up at the sun and see the approaching eagle. So now what the black eagle or rose eagle does is the one will do exactly what these birds do. Spooks daisies or hyraxes as they run off. The second one comes from the and takes them out. They take about 99% of their prey is daisy or hyrax, and they take them off cliff faces itself. So it seems I'm losing a bit of signal. Let's go over to Taylor, who's at Chitterdam.
Goodness, Steve, good luck there. Sorry for the breakup, if there was any. We have got, well, all the impala and the Sabi Sand. Actually, Senzo, there's one more. Here they come running. Now, it must be quite nerve-wracking going across the dam wall, don't you think? Because it's very steep on either side. You can see lots of erosion on the, well, the northeastern facing bank. The Egyptian goose gave that youngster a bit of a fright. So crossing that, not being able to run down off the left-hand side of that bank and not really being able to go down into the water is not going to be nice for them. So they will be on edge. They will try and cross that narrow area as quick as they can. It's beautiful. Look at all the species there. Impala, Egyptian geese, hippo. That's really quite cool. All the little ones playing about as normal. I was hoping we were going to see a spectacular show by the impala bounding across the wall, but that does not seem to be the case today. And can you hear them? Can you hear the impala just next to us on the right? I believe that the wind is a little bit overpowering. That's a pity. It is beautiful. They're very, very vocal. Be youngsters talking to mum talking to youngsters, keeping everybody in check, making sure they don't get out of line. It's a big group of impala. Oh yeah, there's someone that are running. Come on, keep it up. Oh, they were doing such big leaps and bounds. Silly impala. They don't want to put on a show for us tonight. Now you may see the odd safari vehicle popping into frame every now and then. As you can imagine, there are lots of others out on drive. What are those two boys doing? Headbutting one another. Now, Matt, I'm pretty certain that impala would be able to swim if they needed to. However, I've never seen impala swimming before. But if push comes to shove, I bet they'd be able to try and get themselves out of some situations if they needed to. But it is something that I have not seen. But just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Waterbuck are fairly good swimmers. We've seen Topi crossing rivers. Thompson's gazelle and the Mara crossing rivers too. The wildebeest can swim quite well, so I'm sure that they'd be able to do well as best as an impala can do with those little hooves. I'm sure it wouldn't be the easiest. They're much more suited to being on land and sprinting and leaping into the air. That they can show a lot of animals up just with those few techniques. And these two boys have decided that they're best friends now and that they're going to stick with one another and headbutt one another. Here comes some bigger ram. Well, there's one big ram. No, two big rams. Going right in at the back. There's another youngster. Looking beautiful and regal. They're not looking as fat anymore. They definitely look like they've slimmed down slightly, and I bet that's from all the chasing that they've been doing. Starting to obviously come into rutting season now, and all of the big rams are chasing the youngsters around, booting them out, and also chasing the girls around. Goodness, there's lots of splashing going on. Can we have a look at those hippos, Senzo? Because they've been quite funny. That pod of hippos that we saw earlier have now sort of come together. Hello, little ones, and are playing on that island, having the best time ever. Oh, you can't tell me that you look at that and that's not cute. Look at that little one going, yep, I'm going to fight you. And a nice size comparison there between a cow and two youngsters of varying ages. Obviously the one in the middle, that little calf, is much younger than the one on the right. I would say that that little one is maybe 3 or 4 months old, and the one on the right is probably over 6 months old. That's so funny. They are such playful creatures, especially when they're young like this. I've still yet to see a proper hippo fight since I've been here. But lucky, I've seen lots in Zambia, and then I also saw quite a few in the southern Sabi Sand. Yes, Mom, open your mouth to just show them what they've still got to wait to grow. Those big teeth. Little one, as Mom moves, is deciding I'm not going to get left behind. Yeah, you were all brave 2 seconds ago, porpoising through the water. So you can see how that little one struggles because it is so small, having to sink down to the bottom and then propel itself from underwater. A little hop, skip, and a jump, all pushing one another around. Holland, they are very active, and this is quite typical. It's a nice, cool day. They're young. You know, they're full of energy, so they do abound about, as you can imagine. And they're just having the best time ever. I'd love to know what they were thinking. I'd love to know what they were shouting at one another. Normally when my brother and I played like this, we would never play quite quietly. We would be shouting and laughing, and my dad would constantly be saying that we'd be shouting from inside as he'd be watching sport. Keep it down! Keep the water in the pool! You know, stop making such a noise. Taylor, settle. All the things that would be shouted at me. Can't imagine. And my brothers are quite loud as well. I'm louder than them, though, but they try. They definitely do try and keep up with me. But these little ones are not making too much noise just yet. Oh, Data, careful as you bound about on the branches. Almost just fell off a branch. Oh, very cool. Now, I remember I promised you that we'd try and look for crakes and green-backed herons. We did manage to find a green-backed heron, which I'll show you. It's just sitting, I don't know if you can see, Senzo, there's a tree that's been pushed in the water, and there's a branch that comes off, yeah, that one. There we go. Hello, beautiful. Sitting on a nice little perch. It's a good spot, hey? Quite low down to the water, so that that snake-like neck can shoot forward. But just preening itself at the moment, taking a moment. Very cool. Okay, well, we'll hang around at the dam for a little bit longer. Whoa, I don't know who's found one of the creepiest of the crawlies. Ugh, I've just got shivers just thinking about it.
Indeed, this is not a pleasant animal, and I picked this up very, very gingerly just to make 100% sure it wasn't alive. So what we've got here is the infamous centipede, a rather, well, horribly colored individual. It's got this blue, and it actually smells horrendous. It really does stink quite badly. So this guy would have unfortunately probably been hit by a car, I would imagine, although it doesn't look like any damage from a car. It's got its situation where none of the exoskeleton is cracked or broken. It just seems to be twisted and died. So I'm not 100% sure what's happened to it, but you can see this is the head area that we've got in front, this short little antenna that come off, and then these sort of jaws and fangs that come down at the bottom that help them be able to grab food and then to be able to feed off them. Then as you come down, you've got all these legs that come down with these little points on them that help them to grip and to climb, and you can actually see, look how sharp they are. I don't know if you can hear that, but they actually grip my finger as I go through. It's almost like little needles. So it's like a little thorn that kind of grips my finger. And then at the back there, they've got these little guys that sting you, and that is seriously painful when these guys administer one of those. It's not a very pleasant experience at all. So they're nasty, nasty creatures, not something you want to come across too often. And like I say, they are almost indestructible. Try and kind of get rid of these things is very difficult. So I don't know what happened to this one. Like I said, I don't think it's a card, just given that it's not flattened. There's nothing kind of sort of protruding from it. So I don't know if maybe something else kind of caused it to just curl up. Maybe another centipede got hold of it or something like that. Now we get a couple of different types of centipedes here. They're very difficult to tell apart, some of them, but this is, I'm not sure the exact scientific name, but this is the bluer version. Then you get one that's got a very orange coloration to it, and then you've got one that's called a flagtail centipede, which has got these two little protrusions that come out and that they wave around and do all kinds of other things to attract animals to be able to hunt them. So pretty cool animal in some respects, and perfectly designed for what it does, but it sends shivers and nightmares down pretty much everybody else's spine. And like I say, it smells horrific. So we're going to put it back. Hopefully that hasn't gone on my fingers. Let's go. Now we've been down on sort of Triple M to check around for these Matimbas. Theoretically, they should be not even 50 meters from where I am, inside on my left hand side. This one-eyed pan road has just gone down there, but there's no tracks coming from anywhere here, which means that these lines had to have come from the western side, or they came through last night before the rain. And remember, we did get some rain that fell, and they must have moved through between the sort of rain and the end of drive last night. I would have thought that we would have maybe seen some sign of their footprints, but nothing. If they came from the south, it begs a question as to why nobody actually even knows where they came from or has seen them. I want to know, wonder if they maybe didn't just come from the Manyeleti and just come past the gate and into Simambili that side. It might have been the case, but we came from the gate side and we looked around that area and there was nothing really to suggest that there was any lions that had walked that side. So not really sure, but we'll see how it goes, and hopefully, we'll pick up some sort of sign that indicates how they got to that situation. It's such a shame, though, to see that hairy belly the way that he is at the moment. He's much like the dark maned Majingalan, which is what we saw last night. And these are males that were impressive, beautiful, big individuals that really kind of were as dominant as you could ask for from a set of male lions, and to see them kind of regress to these old fellas is sad. But the thing that we need to remember is that even though these animals are starting to disappear, these older males are starting to kind of die and starting to sort of show real signs of weakness, they've lived a full life in the wild, and that's an important thing. Lions these days get persecuted, and so it's amazing when you get a lion that can live its whole life in a wild situation. Good. Let's carry on. Let's see what else we can find. While we do that, let's send you back across to Taylor. I think she's still on Chitwa.
We're still here, Tristan. We're still here. I'm glad you didn't eat that centipede. That would have been terrible. Now, you may hear some strange sounds coming from the dam that don't sound like birds. Sounds like there's some angle grinding going on in the workshop. As you can imagine, when the guests are all out of camp and there are small things that need to be fixed, they'll have to be done. But this greenbacked heron doesn't seem to mind at all. It's not doing anything at the moment other than really just working on its looks and keeping its feathers nice and neat with that very, very long bill. Now, I would like it if this bird would show us its fishing techniques, but we'll chat about that now. Kay, yes, herons are swimming birds, as I've recently just discovered. If you'd asked me a week ago, I would have said no, because I've never ever seen a heron swim before. Normally we see them either on a perch, like this greenback heron, fishing, or we'll see them wading through waters, trying to stir up the fish, hunting that way. Never have I ever seen a heron out in the middle of a deep dam, pedaling like a duck through the water and catching fish. But I did see that with a grey heron at Buffelshoek Dam, and I believe Steve also only recently saw that for the first time. But what's really unique about this greenback heron, and I know most of you do know this, but not only are they able to swim out and fish, or sit on a perch, or wade through water, use their feet to stir things up, but they also fish, like Brent and Tristan love to do. They'll use bait to try and lure anything in. So sometimes they'll use leaves, sometimes they'll use spiders and bread and things like that. They'll put it out in front of them, quite close to their perch, and where they'll spend a couple of minutes hoping that something will come to the surface and try and snatch it up. And then, normally it's going to be quicker than the unsuspecting prey that's coming up for a little bit of a treat. It tricks them, which is quite cool. But they won't stay in that spot for too long. Kind of like if you are a fisherman, you don't fish the same spot all the time. You constantly keep moving around to try and find the hot spots where those fish are feeding. So that's what happens there. And I'd love to be able to sit and watch that for quite some time. I think it would be quite interesting. But on a cool day like today, I don't think anybody's particularly interested in finding food. I think they're all going to be roosting a little bit earlier than normally. Now, this particular heron species, the green-backed heron, is both nocturnal and diurnal. You'll see them active at either time of the day, which is quite cool. Again, not competing with all the other heron species. So Megan, we do get quite a few here. The ones at Chitwa that we see actually most frequently is this one, is the green-backed heron. Sometimes we see the dark-crowned night heron as well. That's more of a nocturnal species. Then we get the bigger ones like the Goliath heron, as well as the grey heron, and occasionally the black-headed heron. But you normally see the black-headed herons actually out in open grass, and they love eating rodents and snakes. But they will fish when there's the opportunity. And what other herons do we get here? I'm trying to think what else I've seen. I actually think I've only just seen those ones, but there will be a couple more out and about that I just have yet to see. But it's beautiful down here at the dam. I'm going to look for Tingana in a minute, though. Robert, well, we're looking at one of the birds that will stay here for winter, is this heron. And let me see if I can find anybody else around. The Egyptian geese are not going anywhere. The buffalo weavers will stay there. That great white egret that you can see at the back, that's also a resident and will live around here. We were seeing some pied kingfishers too. They'll stay here. Of course, the woodland kingfisher has now left us. I haven't seen any more for quite some time. So there are a lot of birds that are residents here. And as we continue throughout the drive, we can just perhaps point them out and talk about their breeding. Or not their breeding, sorry, their migratory patterns, if they have any. Remember, sometimes birds will just disappear completely from an area. And that's because they're following, well, where the food goes. So if there's a burst of insects that goes somewhere else, or perhaps there's a downpour just north of us that brings about a lot of insects, the birds will probably go and feed there. So it might look like they've migrated out of the area. So they're kind of doing little local migrations. Look at this. Sentinel and Impala chasing one another. Oh, we're going to miss it. Oh, that was so quick. Go, boy, go. He's chasing. He chased a female right back over the damn wall. Awesome. Right. Off you go. Back to Tristan, who I'm sure is probably warmer than I am.
Well, I don't know if I'm that much warmer. It's actually quite chilly this afternoon, given the temperatures that we've had over the course of the last few days, and it's been very pleasant to walk in as opposed to yesterday morning, which felt like you were being baked in a sauna. So happy to have a bit of a breeze, and it definitely, I suppose, would be cool on a car, but it's nice to be out on foot like this. Right, so we found where our Matimbas walked, and what is immediately evident with these guys is that they just have the most massive feet, and it's been a while since I've seen their tracks. I always remember when we used to track these guys, just being impressed by the size of a foot. Now, yesterday we had a male lion, and we thought it might have been the Birmingham, and it turned out to be one of the Majingaland males that was kind of following the Nkuhuma Pride, and I showed you my hand size against that paw, and it was a little smaller than what my hand was, but not by much. But this particular paw, as you can see, my whole hand fits inside of it. So the Matimbas have always had massive, massive feet. The toes are at the edge here, over here, here, and here. And so my hand actually fits inside this particular male's track. You can see how massive the toes are. Big round pads. Now, of course, this is soft sand, and it does make a little bit of a looseness, but these are still huge, huge feet. And then this is the back of the pad here with the 3 lobes. And so they came out of Djuma, and this is where they stood, and then they went up into Simambili. Now, I'm interested to know which way they walk, because these tracks are on top of the rain, which means that it was early this morning. And this morning I drove not too far from here, and there were no tracks. So they must have been inside this block and sleeping when the rain had occurred, and then they came out and crossed over and were then found in Simambili. But really cool to see their feet again, just because of how big the sort of size of their feet are and how big they were as individuals, and you kind of remember them as these massive big males. David, every situation is different, so anything on foot, there's never a rule of that you can... Oh, gaming, okay. So there's never a rule when it comes to approaching animals on foot as to distances that you can achieve and how close you can actually get. There's a situation where it will depend on the day, on the wind, cover that you've got available to you, where the animal is itself. So all of these things make life a little bit more challenging. And so with lions, obviously you normally see them from quite far, and you would like to see them from further away, because then you don't disturb them. Sometimes you will bump into them quite close, and depending on which lions it is, either you'll be able to stay there and be able to view them for a little bit, or you won't. But I generally find with most lions, when you get to beyond 50 meters, they're generally trying to get away from you and trying to walk away and trying to sort of get some distance. So some will allow you a little closer than that, but generally for me about 40-50 meters is about the rough sort of estimate that I like to kind of keep with lions. Lynn, yes, most definitely. Whenever there's sick, old or injured animals, you have to be far more alert as to what you're doing and far more careful about what's going on. I mean, that Majingaland male is an old male. There's many, many stories, if you go back in time, where old individuals, old leopards, old lions that are struggling for food, struggling to kind of keep themselves alive, will target people because it's an easy opportunity, and they can potentially become dangerous to people. So you do need to be a bit more careful. The thing is, the difference with those maybe individuals and what we have here is that a lot of these lions, particularly something like the Majingaland, has been tracked every single day of its life for the last 8-9 years. And so it's pretty much seen humans most days, and so they almost know that humans are not such a big threat, and they are not a food item as yet, but you do need to keep careful, and you need to pay attention and watch what you're doing. And that's why if these tracks had gone into a really dense, thick area, you would just leave them alone immediately. The problem is that we don't always know who tracks belong to. Remember that we haven't seen the Matimbas in well over, or almost a year now, since they were last seen, and so you wouldn't know if you found these tracks that these are the Matimbas. You would have said, geez, these are big male line tracks, but I'm not 100% sure whose they are, and you would have kind of just had a look and tried to kind of see what was going on, and you might have then thought, okay, well, maybe it's just the Birminghams, that's just, their feet are bigger, and you kind of go from there. There's no ways, if I had shown that track to any single person here, that they would have told you it was a Matimba's footprint that they had found. So, interesting, and the fact that both are still alive is absolutely fascinating, because many people have reported that Hairy Belly was dead and it's just Ginger that's alive. But as we can see, the two of them are still together. Yes, they're in bad shape. Well, one of them is in bad shape, but it just goes to show you that sometimes because you don't see these animals, it doesn't mean that they are dead. So it's good to see that they kind of still around. Right, we're going to cut off this main road now. I'm pretty tired of the roads. I want to get into the thickets, and so while we do that, let's send you back across to Taylor.
Look at how beautiful this is. Isn't that amazing? So me turn the game drive radio off again. It's a rainbow. I don't know why I hesitated there for a second, like I'd completely forgotten as to what I was staring at, but there we go. Shall we go and find the pot of gold? Rebecca, who's directing, thought I was going to do a quiz with you to try and guess as to what that is. Very funny, ha 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 ha. But it's quite nice with the impala just seated below it. But unfortunately, it looks like that rainbow is in Torchwood, so we won't be able to head there. But always really nice to see. And not a complete rainbow either. It's just half a rainbow. Actually, a quarter of a rainbow. But it's still quite beautiful to see. Oh, I wish we had a double rainbow. That would be nice. Oh, and then look what's happening on the left. My goodness, we better take full advantage of what we're about to see. It's the sun. It's been a while since we've seen that. I don't know how magnificent our sunset is going to be tonight, but we might as well just appreciate it. It's very moody. The sun's still got maybe about another 20, 30 minutes to go before it completely disappear behind the horizon. But it's still quite nice with all the maruda trees, the knob thorns and things. It is beautiful here. It's a pity we don't have a big vulture or an eagle of sorts sitting on top of the tree. Oh, I found one, Senzo. This tree, this really big tree just off to the left of the road, there's a go-away bird sitting right on top of it. Can you see? Yeah, up top there. There we go. There's a silhouetted bird for you. A go-away bird that does not seem to be very, very happy at all about this miserable weather. Is shouting and probably getting ready to go about its day. I'm just going to let Justin's just quickly sneaking on past me. Off they go. Now, just to give you a very, very quick update, unfortunately we're not going to be able to go back to Hosanna. There's about 300 people that want to still see him, and we've only got about an hour and a bit left. And I think there was about a standby 7 available, so I don't think that sighting will go through quick enough, as they've only just rotated the next round of guides. But at least we got to see him for a little bit, and we'll try and figure out where he is tomorrow morning. Right, let's carry on though. I think we're going to leave Chitwa and go and see what else we can find. We're going to head back towards Juma now. I can also take my now. I'm not even going to say the end of that word, or that I was going to take these things off, because I know what will happen is I'll remove them. That's what will happen. So I don't know where we'll scratch around on Juma, but we shall have a little look. No, Rebecca, I'm not mentioning that 4-letter word. I'm too scared, just in case, because we got lucky. It was crazy how there was like this belt of really, really terrible cloud that was overhead, and you saw it right in the beginning, and I thought, no, this is ridiculous. It's not supposed to rain now. And then it did. We got a little bit wet, but now we haven't seen any more rain. Could still come though. It could definitely still pass on by. So yeah, maybe we'll go check up towards Guaripan, or actually I don't know where the lions are, so I suppose it will depend where the lions are. That will determine where we head to next. I haven't got a clue, actually. Not even a little bit of an idea. Okay, so I don't know what Steve has been doing. He's always up to no good. Let's go and find out.
I'm always misbehaving. Of course I am. Thanks, Taylor. We have been driving around and enjoying ourselves. It is a marvelous afternoon. We were looking at the same rainbow that you were looking at a moment ago, and it seems like the vehicles that were viewing the lions have moved off. So we did a big loop up to Buffelshoek Dam. We were going to do a little story about hippos, but then Taylor had hippos playing around and having fun, and our hippos were not doing anything at all. So we decided to move off, and now we are nearly back in the last place of the lions, and we're hoping they haven't moved off. The last vehicle was there 5 minutes ago, but it is amazing what can happen in 5 minutes out here. I remember back in my early days as a trainee in Singita, I spent some time with the lions, and you'd often go out and sort of have a little bit of a nap and wait, and then they'd be sleeping around the car, and you'd look back again and they were all gone. It was quite a frightening sort of thing to have happen, because you know, when you're quite new to the whole situation, you also think, what is stopping them from climbing in my car? And you know, to be honest, folks, there is nothing stopping lions climbing in. They just don't, thankfully. I think the first people who came into these areas back in the day had roofs on their cars and sort of windows and doors, and those lions sort of learned to leave those cars alone, and slowly over time, the habituation process, we've established the lions don't come too close. But every now and again, like last night, I had a youngster who's quite interested in my wheel, and so I have to talk quite sternly to youngsters to say, like, don't do that, please, so that they learn not to associate the car with something they can play with. We're just going through this depression. We're losing signal. Let's got better signal than me.
Well, Steve, I hope that you find your way and that you don't lose signal once again. Now, we are busy moving along, just trying to get back into Djuma and head closer towards home, because as you can see behind me, the sun is starting to shift downwards, and that means it's going to get dark fairly quickly with this cloud cover. Now, in terms of how long it takes to learn how to track, I don't think that you ever stop learning. I think it's a situation where you learn every single time you do it. The more time you spend with guys like Herbie, the more you're going to learn. And there's some very special people out here that probably are some of the best trackers in the world, and they have a sixth sense about it, and they really are phenomenally good at what they do. And spending time with those guys really helps you, and then actually practicing it. So the more you track, the better you get at it. The less you track, the harder it becomes. And so it's a situation where I don't think you ever stop learning, but to get to the basic point where you can identify a track and be able to follow it with some degree of success, I would say probably takes at least a year or two of working in a specific area, because every animal is different. Every animal have a way of moving and a way about them, and so if you can get to a situation where you can learn a little bit about that animal, that makes tracking a lot easier. But definitely, the first 3-4 months, you have absolutely no idea really what you're doing. You might get lucky here and there, or you might have an aptitude for it, but you really don't know enough to be consistently successful. So it takes a while. For me, I don't know, my first year I really struggled with tracking. I actually didn't kind of get it right very often, and it's something that interested me, so that I tried to work on and tried to get into a situation where I did as much work on it. And I luckily had a really great tracker when I was at Chitwa, and he helped me massively with tracking and taught me a lot. And then from there it kind of went, and so hopefully these days some sort of good signs of tracking. I mean, I obviously don't get it right nearly as much as what somebody like Herbie would get, but I still try my very best. Now, Rebecca, if you can repeat the name for me, I think I got the most of the question. In fact, if you can just repeat it all, then hopefully I'll remember. Okay, so Lida, you are asking about how do we approach big cats, and when you're on foot and these kind of things. I think it depends, like I say, on the situation, depends on the terrain that you're in, depends on what animals you're tracking. A leopard versus lions versus, cheetah. There's very different ways about going about it and the way that you do things. And so for me, when I try and kind of track things, I take into account what animals we're tracking. Is it males? Is it females? What terrain am I in? Which way is the wind blowing? Which is a vitally important thing. So whenever you're tracking, you want to try and keep the wind in your favor. When I say in your favor, you want to be trying to walk so that the wind is blowing in your direction. So it's going to hit you and go behind you, because theoretically you're following tracks of the animal going away, and so you want to be getting into a situation where you're walking basically behind that animal, and so its scent is blowing to you rather than your scent blowing to it. So that's a very important thing. The other thing is, when you're tracking, is not to walk like this. So a lot of people that make a big mistake when tracking cats particularly, is that they walk with their head down the whole time, and they don't pay attention to what's going on around them. The really great trackers will often see a track, and they'll just keep going. The track might go off on a pathway, it might go the opposite direction, they'll just keep going because they know in their mind that that pathway is going to join somewhere else, and they'll pick up the track further along. And their eyes are actually glued to what's going on to make sure that they're staying safe and not getting into a situation where they're going to kind of surprise that animal or give themselves a surprise. So, that's probably for me the biggest things when coming to tracking, is to pay attention, use the wind to your advantage, and make sure that you kind of learn the signs of what's fresh and what's not. Many times younger guides, when they track, they'll often track tracks that are cold, that are not worth following, because they get so eager to kind of find the animal that they don't pay attention to the other signs that they are out there. So it just depends on individuals though as well. Some people will have different techniques, but those are kind of the basics. Good, let's keep going. Let's try and start, like I say, heading back closer to home so that we don't end up in the dark. While we do that, let's send you to Steve and a beautiful bit of scenery.
You are back with us, ladies and gentlemen, and we've got the most sensational visual of the Nkuhumas and a rainbow. Isn't that fantastic? Some of them have got their heads up. I'm not sure if something's moving off to our right-hand side. They seem to be losing interest in whatever it is, and heads are back down again. I think something might have twitched in the long grass. The wind has died down quite substantially, and we are alone once again with the Nkuhuma lions. That was hard work. Sorry about my big head getting in the shot. Holly, yes, lions and leopards do have dew claws. There you can see it. That is the most important. Well, can you see it? Just above the... Can you see it? It's just turned. She's going to turn all the way over and not show it to us. It's kind of like that thing quite high up on the wrist, which is the most important claw. There we go. You can see it right in the middle of the screen now. That sort of inside toe. That one Fergus is focusing on right there. You can see a pad just to the left of it, and there's a little pinch there. The claw comes out of that. That is a very important claw when it comes to catching and pulling down. There, you see where that pad is on the top left. There's that pad just to the right of that and up. Whereas the dew claw is inside there. It's kind of quite high up on the wrist, sort of like our thumb would be. If you consider the four toes you can see there of the lion, and then that pad high up on the top, that is essentially what would be the thumb or the big toe on the foot, and the claw comes out of that toe itself. Very important when it comes to grabbing and pulling down prey. I've seen a lion do a backward somersault as an impala jumped over its head, and just the dew claw caught the inside of the impala's leg and managed to pull it down. Very, very sharp, those claws, and it's the one and only claw inside the cheetah that is sharp. Okay, well, let's go over to Tristan, who has got a warthog. Well, it's not every day that you get to see
one of these guys on foot at this proximity. It has got to be one of the biggest warthogs that we have out here. It's a huge male warthog that is standing, I would say, 20 meters from where we are, and I'm super surprised that it hasn't run away. It's probably, like I say, one of the most relaxed individuals that I've ever seen on foot. He's just sitting there watching us at the moment. Isn't this cool? Now, I think it's undecided as to what it wants to do. It kind of wants to walk where we are. Maybe it's got a little house or a little termite mound that it wants to get into that's in our direction, and that's why it's not sure as to what it wants to actually do, whether it wants to run or keep coming forward. But you can see it's taken a few steps towards us. Hopefully it doesn't actually charge us. That will be very upsetting if it does, because it won't be that much fun to be charged by a warthog. Jean-Ray can tell you firsthand what it's like to be chased by a warthog. When he went towards a hole, Herbie's laughing next to me because he knows exactly what I'm talking about. Jean-Ray once went past a termite mound and a warthog, twice actually, isn't it, Herbie? Twice, yes. That he kind of... warthog exploded out and almost took the legs off Jean-Ray. And you can imagine with those guys with those huge tusks how much damage they could do. Now, Magic Dragon, it is a standoff. It's a very big standoff at the moment, and I can promise you that a warthog is quite an intimidating creature at that size. It's a lot bigger than people think. Everyone always kind of sees warthogs and thinks that they're these small animals, but this guy is big, big, big. He probably comes up to well over my knee in height and is built just like a solid unit. And you can see he's actually coming closer. Isn't this incredible? I wonder what it's doing. It's almost like it wants to come and say hello. Do you think if we stand here for long enough, it might even come closer? It might, actually. It looks like it wants to. Here we go. Look, it's coming closer. How cool is this? That's amazing. I'm very surprised that this warthog is coming as close as it is. And like I say, it really is no more than 20 meters from where I am. In fact, even maybe less. It's very, very close to us. And it doesn't seem too concerned at all. It's kind of taking steps closer just to see what's going on. It's not really too worried. Every now and then it lifts its head a little bit, but our scent is not blowing anywhere towards us. The scent is now coming from its right side to its left side, and so we're not going to be blown towards it at all. So it's just kind of watching us, and because we're standing still, I think it doesn't really know what to make of this whole situation at this stage. It's not really used to people probably standing watching it for such long periods. Absolutely fascinating. Now, you know, as with most of the time, even with the vehicles, that these guys typically put the tail up and run away. And so I'm very, very shocked that this warthog is as close as it is without moving away. Are you going to come closer, boy? That's incredible. I can't believe it's coming closer. What's wrong? I want to see if maybe... There you go. You can see even with VM moving a little bit, it's still not actually running away. It's still standing right there. That's insane. I would have thought it would have run long ago. Now, I wonder if this guy, like I say, just wants to get past us towards a termite mound where it wants to go home. Warthogs are fairly intelligent. I don't know if they're as intelligent as a normal pig, but they are fairly intelligent creatures. The way that they work things out is pretty amazing, and they do have a very good array of senses as well. Great sense of smell. Their eyesight is not too bad, and their hearing is pretty good as well. That's how they're able to detect things like leopards. Remember, leopards hunt them regularly, and so they need to be on top of their game to figure that out. And they're also pretty good with figuring out ways to find food. I find, though, that bush pigs seem to be a lot more show a lot more intelligence than what these guys do. Bush pigs are really animals that kind of often will figure out problems and are apparently very difficult to keep out of farm areas. So they cause a lot of havoc with people that have farms, and even though they try and do all kinds of things to keep bush pigs out, they find a way through. So I don't know if warthogs are as intelligent as bush pigs, but they're definitely not stupid animals. Although this guy, I don't know what's going on. Like I said, it's the first time for me to have a warthog stand this long on foot that has in the Sabi Sands. Normally they are gone a long way. I've seen warthogs like this on foot in other areas of South Africa, so in the Kruger Park on the Skukuza golf course, I've seen them like that, and in certain camps where there's grass that grows in the camps, they'll do that. But out in the bush like this, first for me. Herbie, have you ever seen this before? Herbie's also saying to me that this is the first time that he's seen a warthog this relaxed. It's absolutely ridiculous. So we're going to sit here a little longer. We'll see if this warthog gets any closer. And while we do that, let's send you back across to Steve.
Yeah, thank you very much. well, hopefully, or maybe, a warthog will come meandering into this sighting. I was once on a walk, and we were on a bit of a game path in quite a thick sort of vegetated area, or should I say a riverine area with tall trees, and this warthog came sauntering down this game path towards us. We just all sat down and kept very still. And the warthog got to within about maybe 4 or 5 meters from us before realizing something was amiss. But it took a while for it to realize that anything was too much amiss before it moved off. So that was quite a marvelous thing to see. But as it got closer and closer, the tusks got bigger and brighter and more sort of dangerous in their look. And so it definitely was something, when it got closer and closer, you start thinking, is this a good idea? Because when an animal suddenly gets too close, where the only option is to either run away or to defend itself, you would hope the warthog chooses the first of those options. Oh, that was very hard work for that young male. Still too early for him. Oh, way too early to be getting up. We thought they were getting up and going to move, and all they've done is move about 30 odd yards towards the road. Not quite sure what the movements were, but there they are. And now all very flat lions, still digesting the remains of their kudu from last night. As a few drops of rain start to fall down, we are now very fortunate that we put on our roof. Any of you out there heard the term monkey's wedding before? It's something I grew up with knowing very well in Johannesburg. You get the light shining, or in the afternoon you get these beautiful sunsets, and as the sun is setting you get rain. And we always call that a monkey's wedding, because it's raining above your head but yet the sun is shining, which is what you would assume at a monkey's wedding, for everything to be upside down. Now, you know it too, Bex. I don't know where it comes from, but I've known it from a child. But I assume it's got to do with the fact that at a monkey's wedding everything would be a little bit upside down, hence the rain on a sunny day. Is that a Alanis Morissette song? I don't know. And you can still see she's relatively full. Bex is suggesting that Ferg and I do some karaoke. I don't think that's the best idea at the moment, Bex, but I have no doubt at the end of the show you're going to give us another sing-along on the radio on our drive back, like you did that Elvis song last time, which was a marvelous attempt. Yes, she is. Now that is Amber Eyes there. She's quite easy to identify on the belly. She's got four very noticeable mammary glands present. And she is the only lioness of this pride, I believe, that has yet to successfully rear any cubs. I know the other female, the younger one, she's had some difficulty with her cubs with white muscle disease, and now with her remaining youngster disappearing with the arrival of the evoker males, we can only assume that it is related to that. It is what the males would have done. Very sad, to be honest, but you can see there's Amber Eyes. Beautifully round tummy of her kudu. And so while we look at our lions longer, let's go over to Taylor with a perfect sunset.
It is magical, Steve. It's so stunning. The colors that we are blessed with this afternoon are just incredible. Pinks and oranges and yellow. Actually, some parts of the sky actually look like liquid gold. And just when I thought we weren't going to get much of a sunset, nature's gone and made me look silly, like it loves to do. With, of course, a very straight road that you would have seen before. That was Buffelshoek boundary that we're on. Isn't that gorgeous? I feel like this needs... Bex, we're welcome to sit quietly. Unfortunately, there's not even a bird chirping. Do you want to hear how quiet it is? It's actually a bit eerie. That's weird. Every now and then you can hear the odd sound of a arrow-marked babblers. There are a couple of things, but it is deathly quiet out here. Couple of birds chirping, but further away in the drainage lines, I think trying to stay nice and warm, stay sheltered. There aren't too many birds sitting out in the open, all exposed. It's going to get dark relatively quickly tonight with all the clouds that are around us, but that is absolutely gorgeous. Wow. We're lucky, hey? We definitely do get the best sunsets and sunrises. They're so much more dramatic here. First Lady, oh, you're too sweet. I'll pass the messages on to the clouds for you, but you said that that's the most stunning orange cloud you've ever seen. It is lovely, and there are a couple of clouds sort of, well, there's a gap. There's a cloud layer just above the horizon, and then it's sort of fairly open with a few wispy cirrus clouds, and they are like liquid gold. Look at that. They really are like liquid gold. Linda, I don't know if this is the calm before the storm. We've just been having the storm for the last few evenings. Last night it poured with rain at about 11 o'clock. No thunder, no lightning though, but just a torrential downpour, and it was sort of on and off for a few hours. I don't know if there's more rain brewing. We seem to be getting it quite late at night. Although, I'm going to show you how dramatic it is. So if we look further down to the south, look how beautiful that is. And now we're going to see how grey it is and miserable. There's the aerial as well. As you can see, we're just looking at the back of the car. That doesn't look too good. That doesn't look very nice at all. I would assume we're going to get more rain, and I hope we do. I really do. It's the greenest I've ever seen the Sabi Sand before. I mean, Brent and Tristan and Steve are the ones that can really do most of the commenting, as they've worked in the Sabi Sand many, many years prior to this. But when I arrived in the peak of the drought. Wasn't very pretty then. Wasn't nice at all. But that was lovely. What a beautiful moment. We've had all sorts of weather coming through today. We've experienced it all. We've almost been blown away. We've almost frozen to death. We've been rained upon, and now we've been blessed with a lovely sunset, which is quite nice. So, not so bad. Well, it's as though the theme cold weather is with the lions today, as Steve has got two that are all huddled up.
And you're back with us, and we have still got some very flat cats. So there's some comments about the greenery of the Sabi Sands and these areas, you know, the Kruger National Park and the greater surrounds go through dry and wet spells. They talk about 18-year cycles, and we've come from a dry cycle, and we're looking to go back into hopefully a wet one. And to be seeing the Sabi Sands this green this time of year, I don't know if it's uncommon, but I think everybody's used to it being so dry. The last few years has been very, very dry down here, and it's nice to see a bit more rain. Hopefully it will build up the insect populations, because as we've noticed, there hasn't been a huge bloom of insects, as is normally the case in summer months. But with a number of years of drought, populations of insects will go down, but they are very, very quick to regenerate, and any ones that regenerated this year will have bred, laid eggs, and even the rain we're experiencing now will often stimulate them to recoup and to regenerate again. So getting another life cycle, another entire group going through, adults to eggs, and that is one of the reasons why we have got so many of the migratory birds still around, because the temperatures haven't changed too much, and there is still an abundance of food. So a lot of those migratory birds are staying around to fatten themselves up on insects like these lions have done on the kudu. But the birds need to build up their weight, pick up huge amounts of weight before flying ever north for breeding or not breeding. But it is, in my opinion, wonderful to see how green it is this time of year, and I know Tristan would like it to be dry again, Brent would as well, because it is much easier to find cats when the conditions are very dry and animals start to struggle. You get lots more drama, lots more activity. But we need to go through these cycles. These wet periods allow the herbivore animals to build up condition, to get stronger. Doesn't affect the lions too much. Just means that they don't eat as much as they would, because the prey animals are a little bit fitter than they would have been. Not for the kudu last night, though. It's quite awesome to spend time with lions in their first attempt at a hunt. They are successful. It's not normally like that. Quite often they can hunt 7 or 8, 9 times and miss each time. I think the youngsters were hungry, because when we watched the adults go off-road, the youngsters stayed very still at the back, almost as if they had been given a warning. You move and you will not eat. And so they behaved very well, and they were rewarded for it. What a beautiful stretch that is. What a life, ladies and gentlemen. What a life. Flat cats, not a worry in the world. Not sure if you can hear the sounds behind us of the francolins and the spurfowl starting to come together for the evening into their coveys, to roost down for the evening. They've done their feeding for the day, and before the light fades and the sun sets, they will close down. And I can hear distance call of hyena in the distance. But as we have taken the precautions to have a roof, I believe Tristan is probably slowly going to make his way back to camp as the rain starts to come down on his head.
It is indeed. So off to our southern side, it's starting to look rather out there, and so I think we're going to be in a situation where we unfortunately are going to probably get rather wet out here. So we'll just see how it goes. We're going to try and get home as quickly as possible. Obviously don't want to get the pack too wet, and we don't want a situation where there's rain all over the camera. It also makes VM's job very difficult with the covers on, because you can't really get to the focus ring, and that makes life a little harder. So we are going to try and march our way home. Now, the hyena that Steve heard calling, we had it calling quite close to us. It's just here somewhere on quarantine area, so hopefully we'll bump into it on the way home, but I don't know if we will. It sounded like it was a little further south of where we're walking, so maybe it's either coming this way or it's heading back down towards the elephant carcass. Still lots of activity from hyenas, and if it's wet like this, I would imagine the elephant carcass might actually have a few hyenas go to it. It'll soften everything again, and all that stuff that's dried, even the meat on the bones, it'll soften up, and then it's going to become a situation where, you know, these animals can feed off it, vultures and hyenas and so on. So we might find a few of them moving that way. Also with the lions about, often these guys do kind of follow the lions and see what they get up to. So you never know, maybe the hyena will arrive at Steve's sighting, which will be quite nice. Now, we are not far, like I say, from quarantine side, but you can see the rain is starting to thicken up a little bit. It's interesting how it's just kind of blown in as that sun went down. It was a beautiful afternoon at one point. We had a bit of sunshine, there was a little break in the clouds, and then all of a sudden, it was just kind of, as the darkness descended, it just kind of sat, much like that mist the other day, and now it's this kind of fine drizzle, and this is the worst kind of rain for me. I know Steve was mentioning that Brent and I like the drier conditions, and it's not because it's easier to find cats. That's not the main reason. It's easier to find animals in general, but I just find that the drier conditions make what we do much easier. So it's much easier for our cam ops to be able to film when there's no roof or rain covers or those kind of things. And it also just, from a point of view of finding things and seeing things and filming things, drier conditions are a lot easier. That's all it is. It's not about cats only. It's about kind of a whole sort of thing, and I'm sure Brent will agree. Donna, I wish, but the rest of the crew has something against VM and I, and they just don't want to help us. So we asked for a lift because we're getting rained on in this darkness, and they just said, no. So Rebecca said they'll just leave us out here. So I don't know, Donna. You know, it's hard sometimes when you just get told no by somebody when you're pleading for help. No, I'm just kidding. They already offered us a lift, but because it's so close, we will. Apparently, I'm not going to get dinner tonight either. Don't put VM into this, Rebecca, because it wasn't VM's mind that thought that. VM's innocent. So, anyway, we are not far, and they did offer very kindly. Rebecca said Conrad will fetch us. And if it really started to kind of rain, then we'd just make a run for it home. We literally are I don't know, maybe 300 meters from home, so it's not far at all, and with the downhill that we've got, it would be an easy run into home, so we're all fine, everything's going to be okay, and it's not that kind of rain, it's just this sort of moisture that kind of hits everything and makes things a little damp after a while of being in it, but it's not like it's going to damage things too much. Right, we're going to head off, and while we do that, let's send you back across to Steve with some lions that don't seem to be too affected by the rain that's falling.
They are not bothered, and it seems as if we are only getting spat on here a little bit. There's not much rain to speak of. So we do get what we call orographic rain in the Lowveld, which means it falls in very different places. Dale, the animals that enjoy wet and cold weather, elephants absolutely adore cool weather. They like moving around and feeding, rhino as well. When it rains, though, a lot of animals, especially the ruminating animals, will often find, the animals that chew the cud will often find a spot to sort of lie down and find a patch where they can chew, where they can keep a warm or dry belly on the ground. And what I've often seen with lions and leopards is they just sit there in the rain and look very miserable. I've never seen them moving too much in the wet weather. They just sit down and sort of shelter themselves up. And most of your other hooved animals, the ruminants, as I said, the rain makes the ground quite slippery, so they tend to stay in place, chew the cud, drink whatever moisture comes down that's necessary, and just hopefully they don't get too wet. Lions I have seen shelter underneath trees and bushes, trying to keep dry, but there's really not too much they can do when it starts to downpour, and even their footfalls in the mud can be quite slippery. Some of the tracks we were looking at this morning of where they had crossed some of the roads were of slippery tracks in the mud. So their feet are better adapted for the mud than the hoofed animals, but they also don't move too much in the rain. They can't really smell or hear too much, so the hunting is all about sight, and it is quite difficult to hunt when it is raining, but shortly after rain you might find that. Was that an elephant? A hyena calling behind us. I don't know how I thought that was an elephant, but I only have one ear that hears the ambience, and that's that individual that has got an injured eye. See if we can get in on that eye, Ferg. We were looking at it yesterday. It's got, I don't know what that is exactly. Her pupil itself looks fine. It almost looks like a tick, but I don't think it is a tick. It looks like she's got an injury to sort of like the tear duct area. I don't know. It looks uncomfortable. That didn't affect her performance last night, I don't believe. But definitely her right pupil, the one with that growth, is a little bit smaller than the other one. Ooh, wow. Look at that. Still a formidable female. That was a proper yawn indeed. So she heard the hyena. And I remember one of the evenings when Scott and Nikki and myself and a few of the other staff went out to look at the unkuhumas, because this lioness was with Amber Eyes and the youngster, the smallest youngster that's not with us anymore, on quarantine. Oh, I think the whole pride is there actually. And this individual, she was the one who chased hyenas for over 100 to 200 meters. It was fantastic. Normally they just run and charge for about 20 meters, but she really gave it a good go. And you can see by her and these two youngsters' intentions that they're hoping a hyena is going to come. They would like to play some games. The two on the right, the youngsters, they'd definitely like to play games with the hyena. I don't think that adult lioness will play any games. Excuse me, folks. Someone's just calling me on the radio. If you just give me one moment to find my radio, it'd be good. There it's on my lap. Standing by. Animals are still lying up, same position. So one of the people who went for a little sundowner to watch that glorious sunset that Taylor was showing you is now interested, I think, to come back and see the lions, which is a very good thing to do while they are sleeping. Cherry eye. I believe everyone's saying cherry eye. I've never heard of that before. Ooh. Sorry, the autofocus was not liking you there, Ferg. Cherry eye, I've never heard of that before. Is that an eye infection, or is that caused, I thought maybe it was an injury through, what a yawn, from the male, maybe the fighting with the male. But if it's something that happens due to some eye infection, cherry eye, I've never heard of that before. But if that is something that happens to cats, then very interesting. Very, very interesting. Maybe she needs some of the Wandering Jew, the Commelina, this morning as an eye drop to treat that eye. That might be quite nice. I wonder if she would allow me to administer it without baring those marvelously sharp canine teeth. I doubt it. Amazingly resilient, though, these cats. Those of you who've seen that injured female with the on the rump, how she's managed to... Oh, here's another yawn. If she doesn't get up in the next few seconds, I'll be quite surprised after 3 big yawns. It's amazing how resilient they are to injury. Small things like that, how easily they overcome them. Come on, tell me you're going to get up or you're going to lick your face. That's more important. The never-ending grooming, as they will gorge themselves again in the coming days. Seeing them last night when I left them after that kudu kill, how from shoulder to nose they were covered in blood. And they spend the remainder of the day cleaning all of that blood off. It's actually a good indication of how long ago they fed, by how busy they are grooming and how much matted blood is still on the face. First Lady, it doesn't appear to be able to affect her hunting at the moment. I mean, the one lioness with the very badly injured eye, she seems to do just fine. And this lioness, I mean, she seems to have good reaction out of that pupil. It's just a little bit of an irritation inside. So, truthfully, I don't know. But as... Oh, that youngster, just go left there, Fergie. She stood up and she just started urinating right where she stood. And she's practically urinating on her sister. That is revolting, young lady. You should get a spanking for that. That was not a very ladylike gesture at all. And now she's going to lie down again. Corin is telling us that cherry eye is a prolapse of the eyelid. Or the tear duct. Did you say tear duct? Of the nectating membrane. Very interesting. I've never heard of that before, but I wonder if you can add more to that and tell me how damaging it is for the eye and if it is going to go away naturally or if it's going to affect her in the long term. I wonder. That's very interesting. Thank you for that. So now she's flicking her tail in her own urine. Aren't you a marvelous beast? Yes, she is. Looking very proud of herself now. Okay, let's go over to Taylor and see how wet she's getting.
We are rather wet, as you can see. You can't even see me. Look at all those raindrops. Sensor is now going to wipe the lens, of course. Let's get rid of them. Squeak, 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 squeak. Squeak, squeak. Look at that. Magic. I've got my hood on now because, well, it's not pouring with rain. It's a mizzle. It's drizzling. And it's weird weather because sort of in the east and in the south it looks horrific. And then to the west and to the north it doesn't look so bad. The clouds are quite high in the sky. It's actually fairly clear in comparison. So now, of course, we've got our spotlight out, as you can see, and we're waiting to find all sorts of nocturnal creatures. Maybe some honey badger and aardvark. Of course, being very ambitious. I don't think we're going to see things like bush babies and chameleons. It's been a bit too chilly. I think they'd be all hiding away in their hidey holes. Maybe a white-tailed mongoose would be quite nice. We haven't seen one of those for a while. But I'm still looking for that solifuge, that I've been wanting to see for quite some time. I've had my fair share of centipedes over the last little while. I don't want to see centipedes, but I wouldn't mind a little solifuge to watch scurrying across the ground. But again, it might be a little bit on the cold side. And we did bump into some other safarians who were quite keen. They had all sorts of beverages to keep them nice and warm and ponchos on as they were doing their safari. I would assume they're heading for home, though. And they said they did hear some hyenas calling a little bit further to the south from the big open plains behind camp. So I think that's the direction that we will be heading in. We're just going down Vuyatela axis now. We kind of did a bit of a boundary control, just a little TV one, and we found nothing. We didn't see any footprints crossing in. We didn't see any animals. What we did see, though, is two little heads popping up from behind Timbweti Dam, which is in Buffels Hook, and those heads belong to giraffe. But unfortunately, we don't have signal down in there. So maybe they move through into this area for tomorrow morning. It's been some time since we've seen giraffe. That's for sure. Ooh. Okie dokie. What we're going to do now is, because it's a little bit quiet and I'd like to hear from all of you, so ask me 5 questions. Easy ones, sort of short one-word answers, or that you would think would be a one-word answer because you might not know them. Hashtag Safari Live, or you can also ask them on the YouTube chat. Let's go. Let's get 5 questions in a speed round. But while you all sit and contemplate what to ask me, off you go back to Steve with the lions.
Oh, yes, we are back. And this little youngster has done a stretch and now is going to do the rounds of rubbing heads against all of the adults until it finds a partner that will clean it. There we go. That's what I was looking for. It's trying to clean itself. It's going to do some more licking of itself, but it's trying to clean itself. And then obviously those areas on the back, which are quite difficult to get to, that's when you need to find the assistance of mum. We are in infrared, so that is why the light looks like it does. And for some reason, the lions have stood up, and I don't know what they're doing. They suddenly are going to walk right past the car. There's the beautiful stretch. Ooh. Makes me feel good when they do that. Sorry about my head. I'm trying to also see what might be behind us. I'm sorry about my hat. I don't know what is behind us. The water is there. Well, she's going to have a pee. Little toilet ablution stop. Sorry about my head. I'm trying very hard not to get in the way here. It's just how close they are. Mary, the lions do know that we're here. They just don't know what we are. We're a box that smells of petrol and is green and makes a noise that they've become familiar with, and it doesn't pose any threat and doesn't provide them with food. If, for example, we had to feed these lions off of a vehicle like this, they would associate this vehicle with food, and then we would have a problem. But because they've received no negative feedback from us, then they basically just carry on with what is going on in their daily life. But if I had to step out, I mean, I have no door here. This lion is about 2.5, 3 meters from me. If I had to step out, she would suddenly see the bipedal human, the 2-legged upright standing human being, and it would either cause her to run away or to attack. Because suddenly I'm in a comfort zone, a critical zone. If any of you are watching this morning, you'll notice that we got to about maybe 40 yards from these lions, and they weren't really reacting too much. They've gotten quite used to being tracked on foot, but anywhere closer than that, they will respond. And they've got plenty of time to move away when you approach them on foot from a distance. But if I suddenly step out now into their critical zone, she will have to respond in some way. And it will either be a runaway or an aggressive response. So it is very important not to step out of the car now. And for those of you who've been on game drive before, you will understand that many times your guide has said, please do not stand up and do not show your legs, because by standing up, the lions suddenly see the human shape inside of the green petrol-smelling box, and it causes instinctively them to change their behavior. because it's my belief that lions don't see things directly. They see shapes. They see an impala shape. They see a kudu shape. They see a buffalo shape. They see a human form. They don't see the definition of it. They see the shape. And as soon as that shape reveals itself, it causes an instinctive reaction inside their brain that they react to. They are looking up to the sky. I don't know what. Maybe the lions are doing some astrology this evening. Well, let's go back over to Taylor, who hopefully is not too wet, and see how her Fast 5 goes.
Fast 5, the pressure is on. I've turned the volume up so that I can hear Rebecca. I am ready. Oh, here comes number 1. Eddie Master! I don't know what the biggest hyena clan in Djuma is because I've never seen them all together before, but I've heard reports of the Elephant Plains clan, which is in the northern Sabi Sands, not on Djuma, is the largest, and I don't know how many are there. I'm sure there are over 50 hyena around there, and I reckon that's probably one of the bigger clans. The Djuma clan is not as large as that, but again, I don't know how many members to that clan. But in the Mara, we saw massive ones. There was one clan that had like 150, which is amazing to really see. Right, question 1 done. Next. Dale, easiest question to answer of the day, so thank you for it. You've asked what superpower I would choose if I could have one to help me on safari. I'd talk to all the animals, every single one of them, from the fish to the frogs to the mosquitoes. I'd tell them how much I dislike them and the flies. And yes, so to be able to communicate with animals, oh, what a dream, what a pleasure. It'd be easy, super easy. I'm finished now. Now, Paul, lions and leopards, in fact, are often frequent visitors around the camps. I haven't seen a lion in camp. We have had lion tracks walking down past the vehicles before. We always have leopard tracks, and the hyenas are the ones that tend to come into camp the most, like literally run through and try and rummage through the bins. However, I have had lions in camps that I've worked at on the pathway, at rooms, drinking from the swimming pools. So just nothing at Djuma just yet. On to question number 4. Ooh, First Lady, why, are you going to send me some that you're asking me what my favorite candy is? I'm not a fan of, like, sweets, like candy. They're not my absolute favorite. I like chewing gum. That I like a lot. I chew that all the time. Probably not very good for me, but I eat and drink lots of things that are not very good for me. Favorite chocolate. It has to be chocolate. All the chocolate in the whole world is my favorite. So there we go. Senzel, quickly, what's yours? What's your favorite candy? Also chocolate. If chocolate can be a candy, it's Senzel and I. It's actually the camp's favorite in general. And coffee and cheese. That's also... Dale, I can't tell you what the most common topic of conversation is in camp. No, I'm joking. We talk about a lot of random things. Obviously, we talk about work quite a bit, as you can imagine, because we live and breathe the bush and safari live, and now dive live too. So work is often a big conversation, how we can improve things, what we're going to do on safari. How was your safari? What you're going to do on your holiday, who you're going on holiday with, is another big topic. The countdown on when people go on leave, that's always quite funny. Everyone's last week, everyone's very excited, as you can imagine. We work long cycles in the bush. Ooh, what else do we talk about? All the gossip. No, I'm just joking. Only the squirrels talk gossip in camp and everywhere else in the bush. Sadly, our camp is boring. There isn't much gossip that goes on. Everyone's too well behaved. So yeah, I don't know. This is Bex's description of what happens in camp. We wake up early, we go to work, we come back, we eat breakfast, we then have lunch. Sometimes we exercise in between. Then we go to work again in the afternoon, we come back late, and then we go to sleep. not always. Sometimes we stay up late as well. That's no secret. So we have lots and lots and lots of fun in camp. But I'm just trying to think. I can't think of one specific thing that we tend to talk about. Obviously, like I said, work is probably the biggest topic of conversation. But we're now on the middle of quarantine, the open plains behind camp. This is where Tristan had the honey badger the other night. So we're going to see if we can find them. But thank you for those fast 5 questions. I love it when we do that. But let's go back to Steve, who at least has got all the animals today.
Oh, beautiful shadows here as this adult and oldest member of the Unkuhumas starts to scent mark. Do you see her scratching her back legs as she urinated? It's a classic sign of territorial behavior. And yes, the lionesses are the territorialists of the pride, where the male lions dominate more than one pride, so they cover a far greater area. But it's important for these females to scratch every now and again and assert their dominance on their pride lands. And a couple of them started getting up and moving, 2 of the adult lioness, this one included. So we moved back to the 30 yards away that they were at earlier, and now this one has decided it's now time to groom. So the wind has completely died down. We're still in infrared. So what direction the lions will move in is very hard to say. I wonder if you can hear the hyenas. She certainly can. She's looking in the direction the hyenas are calling. And that's the look she said. That's what I think of hyenas, yes. Suddenly a little bit of wind came in there. You saw how she lifted her nose. I felt that breeze against the side of my face. It's a marvelous set of teeth you have there, my dear. And another lioness is going to come and join her. There'll be the characteristic head rub. If any of you've got domestic cats at home, you'll know your cat likes to rub its face against your legs. And one of the funniest things I used to see with my cat was how overzealous it got with rubbing its face, that often it would rub against the couch and then against the curtain, and obviously the curtain being a lot softer than the couch, it would often fall on its face, which is always quite humorous for me. And you can see the size comparison of mum and daughter. Kalena, I've never noticed or seen a cat scent mark a vehicle before in my life. No, I've never seen that before. I don't think they see us as an object to scent mark on. But that would be a first indeed. Okay, so now that is number 2, lioness up and mobile. So I think we're going to
Screeching on that side.
start our engines shortly. Katie, there certainly is a difference between urinating and scent marking. You saw what she was doing there when she scratched her feet. Lions and leopards will scratch their feet in the ground to turn over the loose soil. And I don't know if you've ever dug in the garden before, but if you smell the ground, if you just put your face down to the ground in the morning, do that tomorrow if you like, smell the ground and then go and then dig the ground over and then smell it again. There's a lot more fragrance, there's a lot more sort of holding capacity as well. And so lions and leopards will often scratch their feet, turn in the soil over, and then urinate on top of that. Rhino do a very similar sort of thing, and that seems to hold the smell longer, and it also catches the smell on the back of their feet. So when they walk, it gives them something to follow when they are trying to find their pride members, or when male lions leave territorial trails, it kind of forms a boundary mark around their territory. the same as in the case of a rhino. You can actually follow that line. Well, we can't really, but another male rhino walking in will actually hit that barrier, almost like a wall, knowing exactly what's passed along that line. Whereas before we saw some of them standing up and just drizzling the urine down in a normal sort of squatting pose without the scratching of the back legs. Beautiful youngster, some amazing lighting, nice shadows, watching intently to see if those adult lionesses are actually going to be moving off. This is kind of the intention you see when the adults move off, the youngsters wait at the back. And this is what Craig and I saw last night. We saw at least 4 of the youngsters sitting like this in the darkness, intention in one direction, listening, waiting patiently, and then the kudu bark, followed by the running and the death bellow, which is always quite something to experience and so difficult to film out here in the thick bush of the Sabi Sands. So you might be able to see most of the feeding, but to see the takedown, wow, very, very difficult unless it's in an open area. Okay, well, we're going to stay with these lions again, see what they get up to, and let's go over to Taylor and see what she's spotting with her spotlight.
At the moment, we're not spotting anything. We've actually just put our infrared light on, and I have heard the impalas making the snortling sound. Remember the new word snortling, which I will now be using to describe the sound that a rutting impala makes. It's a combination between snorting and grunting. It was an accident, but I like it, and I'm going to be using it from now on. So we're going to go around and see what they're up to, because they were making a big noise, and I'd like to watch them run around for a little bit. It's always quite entertaining, and we of course got the infrared light on now, so we are able to view them without spotlight and disturbing them and blinding them, or not blinding them. I've never seen a blind animal before from a spotlight, but they become temporarily disorientated, I suppose is the better way to describe it. Do you know that in Zambia they were so worried about affecting the animals at all that even on their headlights they had sort of a red film that goes across it, so it wasn't so harsh, which I found interesting because I've never seen that anywhere else. Well, that of course was only in one small part of Zambia. It wasn't the whole of Zambia. The Lower Zambezi National Park. Okay, where are you, Impala? Oh, there they are. I see them. I'm thinking we might have to zoom around towards the Bushbrae site. I think that's going to be where we'll get a view of... Oh no, there's some in the road here. Here they are. Now, something that that I haven't seen flying around tonight are the bats. So, Paula, yes, normally on hot evenings, we tend to see lots of bats flying around. You even hear them. A mixture of the insect-eating bats and the fruit bats, the mega chiroptera and the micro chiroptera, which is quite cool. But it's very hard to, of course, put them on screen. Okay. Well, I'm trying to find the best group here. Here's some. We're going to switch and... Oh, we're in infrared already. I wasn't concentrating. Here we go. Hello, Impala. Scan. The others are all coming this way slowly. Slowly running towards us, as they normally do, I suppose, just like you and I have a routine. Our routines may vary slightly. You'll probably be jumping in a car, driving through traffic to get to work, and I'm waking up early, as we discussed, game drive, and then game drive in the afternoon, and then bedtime. For the Impala, they start their day out on the open plains, and they end their day on the open plains to try and, well, keep away from all the predators. Although not that standing out in the open is necessarily going to help you, but I can't believe how this weather has just changed. I'm even starting to see a couple of stars, and the clouds seem to be breaking up quite a bit. Now, something that I like to do first thing in the morning, or when I jump out of the car after a long safari, is stretch, and the lions are up to that now.
First thing we do actually is a yawn. Then we get up Then we do a stretch. Oh, I thought she was going to do it for us. She's going to go behind the car, and then you're going to see my head, and now we're going to see the lions again. They are slowly moving what seems to be right behind the car here, and they have stopped just over here. Slowly are moving. Okay, so they're moving in a sort of easty direction. We're going to see if we can stick with them again. Some of them are being quite lazy. The others are moving up ahead. Same as last night. Let's see if we can follow them for a little bit and see what it is they get up to. At the moment, I have still got lions behind my car. It's difficult for me to move. And they are listening to the sounds of the night, which I'm going to allow you all to do for a brief moment. It is a very still evening. I'm listening for the faintest of sounds. The wind we had earlier has completely disappeared. You can see the grass there in front of that female is just moving slightly. Wonderful shadows there. Okay, well, let's go over to Taylor and see if she can get one last critter for the night.
I really hope I can, Steve. I really hope I can. I'm still searching for the salafuge, which likes to actually live up around here. I don't think it's the same individual. Maybe not. I don't know. Hard to tell. Haven't worked out the distinguishing features of a salafuge. Hello, scrub hair. We do have a scrub hair, though. We're going to have to go into infrared to view it. There we go. And just see its glowing eye. Also very nervous being out here. Lots of big owls that would want to swoop down and snatch up a scrub hare. And of course, well, the odd hyena would not pass up the meal. A pack of wild dogs, although probably a bit dark for the dogs. But again, they just do what they want when they want. They don't read the books that we do. Maybe even a big python. I feel like this is snaky weather. Oh, last night we actually saw a giant legless skink, which was quite cool. It looks like a snake, but it's not a snake. That would not want to eat the scrub hare, though. The scrub hare will be safe from that. See, very, very jumpy. Listening out very carefully. And the problem is that we are not the problem, because it can hear us, and it will probably hear a leopard or a lion as it moves through the grass now that there's no wind. But those owls will sneak up from above without making a sound. Sophia is so cute, eh? Whether it is a boy or girl, I'm uncertain. But very camouflaged now as it's tucked away in those taller bits of grass. I'm just listening to sounds of the night. There aren't many. Can you hear the crickets? I think it's crickets. It's a strange sound. Now, Siddha, normally when you see these scrub hares coming out to sort of forage is in the crepuscular period, so just as the sun is set behind the horizon, that last bit of light. So you are quite correct in saying they do feed when the light is low, that they thrive in complete darkness. So you'll see them most active, like now. There's very, very little light left. But they will feel more comfortable feeding out in this way. You see, they've got those big ears, and to be able to hear what's going on, and they can sort of swivel them from side to side independently. They can listen to me talking nonsense about them, and then they can also be listening out for any potential threats that may come around. I think there's a couple of lacewings. Can you hear the hyenas? Very far away. Oh, I don't know if we're winning with audio today. They're definitely around. There's a couple of them whooping not too far away. Very cool. Okay, well, let's give it one last bash to see if we can find some honey badgers. I'd like to see them. I was glad that I got to have a quick glimpse of a honey badger the other day, though, when Tristan first spotted them, and then it sort of flashed out into the middle of the road. If we find a honey badger, I promise you we'll call you back within a jiffy. But off you go to Steve, who I think has the lions on the move.
Yes, we do. We have the lions. They're right in front of us. We're being joined in the sighting by one of the other guides from Juma. And look at this, folks. Isn't this fantastic? We're being very quiet, sitting here, seeing if we can see or hear what they hear. What a cameo performance for these guys. Apologies for the poles, but we do have our roof on, and we are surrounded by lions at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, which is absolutely marvelous. There's a couple of little puddles just next to us here. Maybe I can just assist in lighting that up. It has been a fantastic afternoon. A little bit of rain, a little bit of sunshine, bushwalk with warthogs, leopards, Hosanna doing his thing. Look at that marvelous jump. That was an Olympic medal jump right there. It's been a marvelous afternoon from all of us here at Juma in the Sabi Sands, myself, Fergus, Tristan, Taylor and FC. We do thank you for joining us on this marvelous afternoon game drive safari, and got the lions here, and we are going to say a good night to you, and thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you bright and early for safari in the morning. Have a good evening and good night.